Burial practices become the first place where these changes appear. Early Egyptians gradually shift from shallow desert graves to more carefully constructed burial pits. They begin to notice that preserving the body gives families comfort, and this comfort fuels the belief that the deceased continues to exist in some form. As they observe seasonal changes of the Nile, they draw parallels between the rebirth of the land and the rebirth of the human spirit. The dry desert preserves bodies naturally, but preservation takes intention and effort. The living begin to play a more active role in protecting the dead, and in doing so, they strengthen the role of the guardian who watches over the process. Simple offerings like food, pottery, and tools start appearing in graves. These items show an understanding that the journey after death could require resources. The spirit is imagined as a traveler stepping into a vast landscape, one that resembles the desert, but is also beyond human sight. The guardian becomes the one who not only protects the body, but also guides the spirit through this mysterious passage. These early offerings become a silent dialogue between the living and the divine. Each object placed in the grave carries a message of care, love, and hope that the deceased would not travel alone. As burial practices evolve, so do rituals. People begin to gather around the grave to speak words of farewell. These gatherings deepen the sense of community as everyone acknowledges death, not as isolation, but as part of a shared human experience. Ritual specialists emerge individuals with knowledge of sacred words, symbolic gestures, and the mysteries of the desert. They guide families through the process of preparing the deceased, offering reassurance that their loved one will find the guardian waiting beyond the threshold. These early ritual specialists are not yet priests in the formal sense. Instead, they hold a respected place within their communities due to their understanding of how to speak to the unseen. They create chants that mirror the cycle of the river and the rhythm of the desert winds. In these chants, they call upon the guardian to stand beside the soul. Their words blend fear and hope, acknowledging the uncertainty of what lies beyond, but trusting that the guardian will reveal the path. As these ideas spread across the Nile region, small shrines begin to appear near burial sites. These shrines are simple structures of stone or wood placed under the open sky, as if inviting the guardian to dwell there. People leave offerings to honor the protector of the dead. These offerings are not elaborate, but they represent gratitude: a piece of bread, a handful of herbs, a carefully shaped figurine. Each object expresses the belief that the guardian sees and acknowledges every act of devotion. In time, the presence of these shrines contributes to the development of larger sacred spaces, paving the way for formal temples. Within these communities, the earliest depictions of the guardian become more refined. Carved into pieces of stone or etched into pottery, the figure begins to merge the shape of a man with the head of a jackal. This combination symbolizes the balance between human understanding and the animal's connection to death. The human body suggests strength, intention, and wisdom, while the jackal head reflects ancient knowledge, sharp senses, and the ability to traverse the boundaries between worlds. As people create these depictions, they transform the guardian from a symbolic presence into a divine figure capable of guiding souls through the vast desert of the afterlife. The growing complexity of burial structures mirrors the evolving spiritual landscape. Graves become deeper, coffins begin to appear, and simple coverings evolve into early forms of tombs. This shift is not merely practical, it is symbolic. A tomb represents stability and intention, signifies that the living are taking responsibility for the protection of the dead. In this context, the guardian becomes more than a companion for the spirit. K becomes the protector of the tomb itself. The living believe that his statue or image placed near a burial site can ward off harm. This belief strengthens as communities grow larger and burial spaces grow more organized. K. As the populations along the Nile expand into the early phases of what will become a unified civilization, These ideas take on greater structure. Leaders emerge who organize land, water management, and community rituals. These leaders recognize the importance of spiritual symbols in maintaining unity. They support the growth of sacred traditions, formalizing rituals and expanding burial sites into necropolises. As these necropolises grow, the presence of the guardian becomes central to their identity. He becomes the one who oversees every burial, the one who watches as families place their loved ones into the earth's embrace. In these growing societies, the guardian also takes on a symbolic role within the living world. People begin to see him not only as a protector of the dead, but also as a guide for the living who seek strength during times of uncertainty. They turn to him during illness, danger, or emotional turmoil. They believe that a being who understands the afterlife understands life even more deeply. In this way, the guardian becomes a figure who stands at the center of spiritual resilience. People whisper prayers to him during quiet moments, asking for clarity and protection, just as they trust him to guide the souls of the departed. With the gradual rise of early social hierarchies, certain families take on responsibility for maintaining sacred spaces. These families pass down knowledge about rituals and burial practices from generation to generation. Their work becomes more refined as they learn how to cleanse and wrap the dead with increasing care. These early forms of body preparation reflect the belief that the guardian honors those who are treated with dignity. Care for the body becomes synonymous with care for the spirit. As these practices evolve, communities begin to develop narrative traditions that describe the journey of the soul after death. Storytellers, elders, and early spiritual guides paint vivid images of the unseen world. They describe a vast landscape filled with shifting sands, starlit skies, and mysterious spirits. In these stories, the guardian walks quietly beside the soul, offering protection and guidance. His presence is calm and unwavering. He does not speak often, but when he does, his words carry the weight of truth. These stories help people understand that death is not chaos, but a path with direction. The journey through the afterlife becomes the central theme in many of these narratives. Storytellers imagine obstacles that the soul must overcome, such as dark rivers, winds of confusion, and creatures that attempt to lure the soul astray. Yet in every challenge, the guardian is present. His eyes see through darkness. His ears catch the faintest sound of danger. His steps remain steady. These stories reassure the living that their loved ones will not face the journey alone. They give form to the belief that the guardian is always vigilant, always ready to protect. During this time, people also begin to associate the guardian with moral integrity. They believe that he can sense the intentions of a living and the truth of a person's life. This belief does not yet resemble the structured judgment scenes of later Egyptian religion, but it lays the foundation for them. People imagine that the guardian can distinguish between a soul that lived with respect and a soul that acted with cruelty. In this way, he becomes not only a protector, but also a quiet evaluator of character. His presence encourages people to live with integrity, knowing that the guardian sees not only their actions, but also the motivations behind them. As settlements grow into early towns, the physical structures associated with burial practices began to change dramatically. People began to carve rock-cut tombs into cliffs and hillsides. These tombs offer better protection from desert winds, animals, and shifting sands. They also symbolize permanence, reflecting the belief that the spirit remains tied to its resting place. Within these tombs, the guardian is represented through carvings, paintings, and small statues placed carefully near entrances. This image is used to mark the threshold between the world of the living and the realm of the dead. This threshold becomes a sacred boundary where the guardian's presence is most strongly felt. With the increasing complexity of burial structures, early societies also began to create specialized tools for funerary practices. Teas used for cutting wrappings, vessels for holding oils, and brushes for cleansing the body become part of the ritual. Each tool is created with intention, and each one carries symbolic meaning. The use of these tools reflects the belief that preparing the body is a sacred act, guided by divine principles. As people handle these objects, they imagine the guardian watching, ensuring that they treat the deceased with respect and care. During these early developments, the connection between the guardian and the desert remains central. People continue to view the desert as both a place of danger and a place of protection. They imagine that the guardian moves silently across its sands, watching over burial sites and guiding souls through its dunes. They see him as a master of the desert, someone who understands its secrets and knows how to navigate its shifting landscape. This connection reinforces the belief that the guardian's power arises from his connection to nature itself. As time passes, spiritual leaders began to create deeper philosophical explanations for why the guardian plays such an important role. They teach that death is not an isolated event, but part of the cosmic order. Everything in life follows patterns. The flooding of the Nile, the growth of crops, the change of seasons, too, follows a pattern. It is the moment when the spirit returns to the unseen world. They teach that the guardian embodies the balance between life and death, present at the moment of transition to ensure harmony is maintained. These teachings gradually spread along with trade, communication, and cultural exchange among early Egyptian communities. People begin to unify their understanding of the guardian, shaping a consistent image that transcends local traditions. This unified image becomes the foundation for the later formal depiction of Anubis. Before literacy, before temples, before kingdoms, the essence of Anubis grows from these shared beliefs. The guardian becomes a symbol of safety in the face of death, a protector who stands watch over every burial and every soul. By the time early Egyptian culture begins to take the form that historians recognize, the guardian has become an integral part of spiritual life. Families speak of him during moments of grief. Ritual specialists invoke his presence during burial rites. Artists carve his image into stone. Children hear stories of his watchful presence through the night. Over countless generations, the guardian transforms from a desert animal into a divine figure, shaped by human imagination, experience, and the universal desire for protection during life's most mysterious transition. Thus, the seeds planted in the earliest days begin to develop into a structured mythology. The guardian's role expands along with the society that reveres him. His presence becomes a bridge between the living and the dead, between the known and the unknown, between fear and understanding. The growing complexity of burial practices reflects a growing complexity in spiritual thought. And, through it all, the guardian remains at the center, guiding the evolution of belief and shaping the ancient world's understanding of what lies beyond the final breath. The sun rises higher over the widening settlements along the Nile, and the shape of early Egyptian society begins to transform in ways that will reshape every aspect of life, including the spiritual world that surrounds the guardian of the afterlife. Villages grow into towns, and towns begin to merge under emerging regional leaders. These leaders control irrigation, food storage, and defense, but they also take interest in ritual practices. As communities expand, the earliest forms of organized priesthoods begin to appear, rising naturally from the individuals who already possess knowledge of burial rites and sacred traditions. These priestly figures, though still humble compared to the powerful clergy that will come later, play a crucial role in formalizing the guardian's image and deepening his connection to the people. The Nile's annual flood shapes not only agriculture, but also the rhythm of spiritual life. As the river rises, depositing fertile soil, people see the miracle of renewal. When it retreats, life begins anew. In this cycle, they sense a pattern that mirrors the transition between death and rebirth. The guardian becomes associated more deeply with this sacred cycle. People begin to imagine him not as a distant figure seen only in the desert, but as a divine presence woven into the very structure of life. His role expands from protecting the deceased to safeguarding the balance that allows life to continue. As political leaders grow stronger, they begin to centralize sacred practices. They gather ritual specialists and wisdom keepers into designated roles, creating early temple communities where religious knowledge can be shared more efficiently. These communities become the centers where myths are refined, rituals are perfected, and symbols take on formal meaning. Within these spaces, the image of the guardian evolves rapidly. What was once a fluid and varied set of beliefs becomes a more unified spiritual doctrine that better reflects the needs of a growing civilization. This is the period when the guardian begins to acquire a name, though it will change and develop over time. Linguistic variations, local dialects, and evolving script shapes make early names fluid and uncertain. Yet, even before writing becomes common, people speak to the guardian in a more formal way. Ritual leaders refer to him using titles that convey respect, such as he who stands by the dead, the opener of the way, and the watcher in the desert. These titles reflect the expanding view of the guardian as not only a protector, but also a guide through the spiritual landscape that the dead must traverse. As the first proto-kingdoms form, each region brings its own set of traditions to the growing tapestry of Egyptian culture. Some regions emphasize the guardian's connection to the desert, while others highlight his connection to the night sky. Still others view him primarily as a spiritual intermediary. This diversity enriches the mythology rather than dividing it. Through cultural exchange, the guardian becomes a multi-layered figure, capable of representing different aspects of death and protection depending on the needs of the community. During this time, the construction of burial sites becomes more ambitious. People begin to carve tombs into cliffs and hillsides with greater precision, creating rooms, chambers, and niches for offerings. They design these spaces with symbolic intention corridors that represent journeys, chambers that represent resting places, and carved doorways that represent thresholds between worlds. The guardian's image becomes central in these spaces. He is carved onto walls as if watching over the deceased, standing at the entrance to guide the soul forward. These early artistic expressions are not yet the highly stylized images of later Egyptian art, but they show remarkable dedication and spiritual intent. The introduction of writing marks a profound shift in the development of religious belief. As early hieroglyphic symbols emerge, they allow people to express ideas about the guardian with greater clarity and permanence. Words carved onto tomb walls preserve prayers that call upon him, ensuring that the deceased can invoke his protection long after the living have departed. Writing allows mythology to be recorded and passed on, preventing stories from being lost to time. Through these early inscriptions, the guardian's presence becomes etched into stone. No longer reliant solely on oral tradition, with the growth of early administration, scribes take on an important role in shaping spiritual doctrine. They record rituals, prayers, and lineage, embedding religious and political authority into the fabric of society. As scribes refine the language, the guardian's attributes become more clearly defined. He becomes associated not only with protection, but also with purification, judgment, and the guiding of souls. Even before the popularization of the famous judgment scenes, scribes describe the guardian as the one who ensures that the soul enters the afterlife properly prepared. This responsibility reflects the increasingly structured view of the spiritual world. As political power continues to consolidate, regional leaders begin to compete for influence. They sponsor large-scale construction projects, some of which are intended to honor the dead of their lineage. These early monumental structures, though small compared to later pyramids, reflect the desire to immortalize power and heritage. The guardian's image appears on these structures as a symbol of authority. Leaders believe that invoking the guardian's protection ensures the legitimacy of their rule, demonstrating how deeply rooted the figure has become in the political consciousness of early Egyptian civilization. During this period, social stratification becomes more pronounced. Nobles and leaders receive more elaborate burials, while common people maintain simpler traditions. Yet, even in the simplest graves, the presence of the guardian remains. Families place small figurines or early amulets shaped like jackals near the body. These humble objects show that devotion to the guardian transcends class. This universality will remain a defining feature of his worship throughout Egyptian history. People of all levels of society depend on him for protection in both life and death. The guardian also becomes closely linked to the concept of order, which the Egyptians call Mat. This idea encompasses truth, balance, justice, and cosmic harmony. As communities grapple with the complexities of growing society conflicts, resource distribution, and leadership transitions, they place increasing emphasis on maintaining order. The guardian's association with burial rites naturally extends to the preservation of social and spiritual balance. Stories begin to describe him as the one who ensures that souls face their fate truthfully. Though the later image of the weighing of the heart has not yet fully formed, its conceptual seeds are beginning to take root. Temples dedicated to local deities become more organized during this time, and though the guardian does not yet have grand temples of his own, he is increasingly honored in necropolis shrines. Ritual leaders tend to these shrines daily, offering incense, water, and prayers to the guardian so that he continues to watch over the dead. These offerings reflect a growing belief that the relationship between humans and the divine is reciprocal. The guardian protects the living and the dead, and the living honor him through devotion and respect. As rituals become more sophisticated, the process of preparing the dead also becomes more elaborate. Wrappings become thicker, oils more varied, and cleansing methods more consistent. Although full mummification has not yet developed, the desire to preserve the body grows stronger. People begin to experiment with different materials and techniques to slow decay, believing that the guardian will help preserve the soul if the body is treated with care. These early experiments will eventually evolve into the highly refined mummification process that becomes synonymous with Egyptian culture. Within this evolving spiritual landscape, stories about the guardian grow richer. Elders describe him as one who walks silently through the night, observing all that happens. They say that he knows the fears that linger in human hearts and that he guides souls to release these fears upon death. Some stories describe him as a gentle presence, leading the dead with a calm hand. Others depict him as a powerful protector who prevents harmful forces from attacking the soul. These varied depictions reflect the complexity of human emotions surrounding death, fear, hope, sorrow, and acceptance. As these narratives grow, the guardian becomes a figure who embodies both compassion and strength. Native, he is neither distant nor intimidating. He is steady, patient, and attentive. People begin to view him as a companion in their own lives. They imagine him walking beside them during moments of despair or uncertainty, offering silent guidance. This belief strengthens the bond between the living and the divine. It makes the guardian not only a figure of death, but also a source of comfort in life. With the unification of early Egyptian territories under a single ruler approaching, cultural symbols begin to merge. The guardian becomes one of the few religious figures who transcends regional boundaries. He is honored in the north, the south, the desert regions, and the riverlands. His image appears in tombs across the emerging nation. This broad recognition lays the foundation for his prominence in the fully unified Egypt to come. When political unification occurs, the guardian is already deeply rooted in the cultural consciousness. Trade and cultural interaction with neighboring regions introduce new ideas that subtly influence Egyptian spiritual practices. Traders from distant lands bring stories of their own deities and spirits associated with death. Egyptian ritual leaders listen, compare, and integrate concepts that resonate with existing beliefs. This blending of ideas enriches the guardian's mythology. He becomes more than a local spirit. He becomes part of a larger spiritual framework that reflects the changing world. The increasing complexity of society brings new challenges. Populations grow, demands on resources increase, and social tensions rise. Leaders rely more heavily on spiritual symbols to unite the people. The guardian's role expands to include the protection of the nation as a whole. Stories describe him as watching over not only the dead, but also the land itself. He becomes a figure of stability during uncertain times. This shift reflects the belief that the divine presence guides every aspect of life, from agriculture to leadership to death. As writing becomes more widespread, the earliest funerary texts begin to develop, though simple compared to later religious texts. These early inscriptions describe the guardian with reverence. They call upon him to open the way, protect the chamber, and guide the spirit. These phrases reflect a sophisticated understanding of the afterlife journey. They also show that the guardian's role has become clearly defined within the spiritual system. He is no longer a mysterious desert spirit. He is a divine being with established responsibilities. But by the time Egypt approaches true political unification, the foundations of the guardian's mythology are firmly in place. His association with death, protection, guidance, and moral integrity has become deeply embedded in the culture. Burial practices reflect his influence. Rituals invoke him, art depicts him, families trust him, leaders honor him, scribes describe him. Every part of society looks to him for assurance that the transition from life to death is safe, meaningful, and guided. As early Egyptian civilization prepares to enter the age of pyramids, kings, and formal religion, the guardian stands ready to take on an even greater role. He has grown from a desert watcher into a divine protector. He has become the embodiment of trust in the face of the unknown. And as the next chapter begins, the guardian will step more fully into the identity that future generations will recognize as Anubis, the master of sacred mysteries and the eternal guide of souls. The first kings of a newly unified Egypt rise with the same sun that has shone over the Nile for millennia. Yet the land around them is no longer a scattering of independent villages. It has become a single realm under one crown, one administration, and increasingly, one worldview. With this unification, a profound shift begins to occur in ritual practices, belief systems, and the cultural imagination. The guardian of the dead, whose presence once lingered in scattered burial sites across the desert, now becomes part of a centralized religious framework that shapes the identity of the entire nation. This transformation marks the beginning of the Old Kingdom, an era that will redefine life, death, and divinity in ways that echo across time. The rise of centralized leadership brings large-scale construction projects, including organized necropolises near the capital. These vast cities of the dead become carefully planned spaces, arranged with precision and intention. Tombs are no longer carved in isolation, but grouped together, forming clusters that reflect social hierarchy and spiritual beliefs. At the heart of these necropolises stands the guardian, whose presence is invoked in every stage of burial. His image is carved onto doorways, painted on walls, and sculpted into small statues that accompany the deceased. As the necropolis grows, so too does the guardian's role as the overseer of sacred spaces, as well as the guide of souls. Within this newly unified society, a formal priesthood emerges with a structure far more sophisticated than anything seen before. Priests are now designated specifically for funerary duties, and they undergo rigorous training to learn rituals, chants, and purification practices. These priests become known as priests of the guardian, custodians of the sacred rites that ensure safe passage into the afterlife. Their responsibilities include reciting specific invocations to call upon the guardian's presence, overseeing the preparation of the body, and performing rituals that symbolically open the path for the spirit. With each ritual, the guardian's identity becomes more refined, more consistent, and more deeply integrated into Egyptian religion. The construction of Mastabew's rectangular tombs with sloping sides marks a significant evolution in burial architecture. These structures represent the desire for permanence and protection, reflecting the belief that the deceased's body and soul must be shielded from harm. Inside the mastebus, the guardian's presence becomes essential. He is invoked to prevent the dead from wandering aimlessly, to protect them from malevolent forces, and to guide them through the invisible thresholds that separate one realm from another. The more elaborate the tomb, the more prominently the guardian appears. His figure standing silent watch over the corridors and chambers. In this era, the visual representation of the guardian becomes standardized. Artists now depict him with a human body, symbolizing intelligence, authority, and divine intention in the head of a jackal, embodying his connection to death, night, and the desert. This hybrid form represents the perfect balance between rational guidance and supernatural perception. His tall ears stand erect, capturing every sound in the unseen realm. His elongated snout reflects the sharpness of his senses. His posture shows calm vigilance, as if he is always alert, always ready to guide the soul toward safety. As the guardian's image becomes iconic, stories about his origins also evolve. Early priests and storytellers articulate myths that describe him not only as a guide, but also as a divine being born from the cosmic order. These stories portray him as one who existed before time, walking the boundary between life and death before the first human took breath. He is said to have been present when the world was formed, guiding the spirits of the earliest beings. This mythic authority strengthens his role in guiding kings, nobles, and commoners alike. With the consolidation of power under the pharaoh's funerary practices become deeply intertwined with royal ideology. Kings present themselves not only as rulers of the living, but also as divine beings who will join the gods after death. To ensure this transition, they rely heavily on the guardian. Royal funerary texts, carved into the walls of pyramids and tombs, call upon him to protect the pharaoh's journey into the next world. These texts describe the guardian as he who stands upon the sacred mountain, watching as the soul ascends toward the heavens. Through such imagery, he becomes central to the cosmic order that sustains royal power. The construction of the first pyramids symbolizes the ultimate expression of eternal life. These monumental structures dominate the horizon, visible symbols of the pharaoh's divine authority and eternal destiny. Yet, beneath their grandeur lies a profound spiritual purpose. Every stone placed in the pyramid's structure reflects a belief in the continuity of life after death. Every chamber, corridor, and offering niche serves a function in guiding the king toward rebirth. In this context, the guardian becomes indispensable. He is the one who opens the way through the hidden chambers. He is the one who ensures that the pharaoh's Ka, his vital essence, finds its rightful place in the afterlife. The pyramid complex itself becomes a sacred realm where the living and the dead intersect. Priests perform daily rituals to maintain the spiritual energy of the space. They place offerings of bread, beer, incense, canned oils before statues of the guardian, seeking his protection, not only for the deceased king, but for the entire kingdom. These offerings reflect the belief that maintaining harmony in the afterlife directly affects harmony in the living world. The guardian becomes a divine intermediary whose approval and presence sustain cosmic balance. At the same time, mummification begins to evolve from simple preservation to a highly ritualized process. Though still in its infancy compared to later periods, the practice becomes increasingly detailed. The body is cleansed with scented oils and wrapped in multiple layers of linen. Ritual specialists recite hymns, calling upon the guardian to purify the deceased and prepare the soul for its journey. Early versions of funerary masks appear, designed to help the spirit recognize its body. Throughout this entire process, the guardian remains the central figure, invoked to oversee and sanctify the transformation. The guardian's association with purification grows stronger during this period. Priests begin to believe that he has the ability to cleanse the soul of earthly impurities, allowing it to enter the afterlife with a clear and unburdened heart. This idea reflects the increasingly moral dimension of Egyptian religion. Purity is no longer a physical state alone. It becomes a spiritual state that determines how the soul progresses in the next world. The guardian, as the purifier, becomes the divine being who ensures that the soul is worthy of entering the sacred realms beyond death. As the old kingdom unfolds, the guardian becomes closely linked to the concept of the opening of the mouth ritual. This ceremony, performed on the deceased before burial, symbolizes the restoration of the senses so that the soul can speak, breathe, and receive offerings in the afterlife. Priests call upon the guardian during this ritual, believing that he possesses the divine authority to open the spiritual pathways that connect the physical and metaphysical worlds. His presence during this ceremony demonstrates his essential role in ensuring the continuity of existence. Meanwhile, burial goods grow more elaborate. Painted pots, carved figurines, tools, jewelries, and symbolic objects fill the tombs. These items are not only symbols of status, but instruments intended to support the soul beyond death. Among these objects, amulets bearing the guardian's image begin to appear in increasing numbers. These amulets serve as personal tokens of protection, ensuring that the deceased remains under the guardian's watchful care. People believe that the guardian recognizes those who carry his symbol, guiding them more gently through the shadowed realms beyond the royal sphere. Ordinary people also feel the influence of these evolving beliefs. Though they cannot afford elaborate tombs or extensive rituals, they adopt simplified versions of the practices observed by the elite. They wrap their dead with care, place small offerings beside the body, and speak prayers, calling upon the guardian. These practices affirm that the guardian belongs not only to the powerful, but to all who honor him. As society becomes more hierarchical, the guardian's universal role maintains spiritual unity. In a world where kings live in luxury and common people work long hours in the fields, the promise of protection in death offers comfort. Even the humblest family can call upon the guardian to watch over their loved ones. This accessibility distinguishes the guardian from some other deities associated with royal authority. He stands as a divine presence for all, a protector of every soul who walks the path beyond life. The rise of monumental art during the Old Kingdom brings new depth to the guardian's depiction. Sculptors carve his image into stone with precision, capturing the graceful slope of his jackal muzzle and the poised strength of his human form. Wall paintings show him performing sacred duties, guiding souls, protecting entrances, and overseeing rituals. These images reveal not only artistic skill, but spiritual devotion. They express the belief that the guardian embodies dignity, protection, and unwavering vigilance. The guardian's relationship with other deities also begins to evolve, though he has not yet taken on the complex associations that will emerge later. Early texts hint at a connection between the guardian and emerging funerary gods who oversee rebirth and renewal. These connections reflect the growing sophistication of religious thought. The guardian becomes part of a larger divine framework that encompasses different aspects of life, death, and cosmic order. As the Old Kingdom reaches its height, the guardian's role becomes firmly established. He stands beside the deceased in their most vulnerable moment, ensuring that the transition from life to death proceeds smoothly. He guards the tomb from spiritual and physical harm. He guides the soul through the darkness. He purifies the deceased so that they may stand in the presence of the gods. His watch extends not only through the night, but through eternity. Yet, even as his influence grows, the essence of the guardian remains tied to the humble origins from which he emerged. He is still the silent watcher of the desert, the one who walks the boundary between worlds without hesitation. His divine authority arises not from power alone, but from understanding. He knows the fears that accompany death. He knows the journey that lies ahead, and he offers guidance without judgment, offering protection regardless of rank or wealth. Thus, during the Old Kingdom, the guardian evolves from a local protector into a central figure of Egyptian funerary religion. His presence shapes rituals, architecture, art, and belief. His image becomes one of the most recognizable symbols in the ancient world, And as Egypt prepares to enter a new era of spiritual transformation, the guardian stands ready to take on an even greater role. One that will define him for millennia as Anubis, the eternal protector of the dead. The desert wind moves softly across the necropolises that now surround the ancient cities, carrying with it a whisper of sand and the faint scent of incense rising from the tombs. The old kingdom has matured, and with its maturation, the presence of the guardian has become both omnipresent and deeply revered. His image stands at every threshold, his statues guard every burial chamber, and his symbols mark the boundaries between the living and the dead. Yet, beneath this growing cultural familiarity lies a profound evolution in how the Egyptians understand the guardian's nature. He is no longer merely a divine protector shaped from the silhouette of the jackal. He has become a cosmic force that embodies the balance between fear and safety, between the harsh realities of the desert and the sacred promise of eternal life. What is most remarkable during this era is the transformation of the jackal's meaning itself. In earlier times, the sight of jackals prowling near burial sites evoked fear mixed with respect. People saw them as scavengers, guardians, or messengers, depending on the moment and the story told around the fires. But as society grows more structured and religious thought becomes more refined, the jackal's symbolism becomes layered with deeper significance. The desert scavenger, once a creature of uncertainty, becomes a sacred embodiment of vigilance. The animal's nightly presence near burial grounds is no longer seen as predatory. It becomes a sign of divine watchfulness. Artists begin to portray jackals with a serene, dignified posture, as if they understand their sacred role. Their fur is depicted with smooth, unbroken lines, suggesting purity and grace rather than menace. Their eyes are drawn with an otherworldly calm, hinting at knowledge beyond human grasp. This artistic shift reflects a profound cultural reimagining. The jackal becomes the earthly echo of the guardian's divine form, and the guardian's divine form becomes the perfected image of the jackal's earthly presence. This evolving symbolism also transforms the way Egyptians interpret the desert. Once seen primarily as a harsh and unpredictable environment, the desert now becomes a sacred space. It is the realm where the boundary between life and death grows thin, where spirits wander and divine forces watch silently. The desert's vast emptiness takes on new meaning. It represents the endless expanse that the soul must cross after leaving the body. In this imagined landscape, the guardian appears not as a distant deity, but as a familiar presence who knows the terrain intimately. This familiarity shapes the growing belief that the guardian does not merely protect the dead, he guides them through a vast and complex terrain beyond human understanding. Storytellers describe this terrain with increasing detail. They speak of shadow dunes, winding paths, and hidden doorways that only the guardian can unlock. They describe how the soul must navigate through layers of darkness to reach the halls of eternal light. The guardian is present in every step of this journey. He walks beside the soul, steady and unyielding, ensuring that no danger overwhelms it. These evolving stories shape the rituals performed by priests. They begin to enact symbolic journeys within the tombs, guiding the spirit through chants, gestures, and sacred objects. Each part of the ritual corresponds to a stage in the imagined journey of the soul. When the priests light lamps, they invoke the guardian's guiding light. When they pour water over the body, they evoke the cleansing needed to enter the next realm. When they make offerings of bread or incense, they symbolize the provisions that sustain the soul during its passage. Through these rituals, the guardian becomes more than a myth. He becomes a living presence woven into the fabric of daily life. The development of sacred texts during this period strengthens the guardian's identity. The earliest pyramid texts began to appear, carved into the walls of royal tombs with meticulous care. These texts describe the journey of the pharaoh into the afterlife. calling upon various gods for protection and guidance. Among them, the guardian appears as a central figure. Okay? He is invoked to open the way for the king, to watch over the limbs of the deceased, and to drive away the one who would harm the spirit. Okay? These phrases reveal the guardian's expanding responsibilities. He is no longer only a protector of tombs or a guide of souls. He becomes the keeper of spiritual integrity, ensuring that the soul remains whole and untarnished during its eternal journey. As the guardian's presence becomes more deeply embedded in religious texts, his role as a purifying force also expands. The Egyptians begin to believe that the guardian has the power to cleanse not only the body, but the soul itself. This view reflects the growing moral dimension of Egyptian religion. Purification is no longer just a ritual act. It becomes a reflection of the soul's readiness to enter the afterlife. The guardian's association with purity symbolizes his ability to restore balance and cleanse away spiritual darkness. Artists respond to these developments by refining the guardian's visual depiction. They began to elongate his limbs, giving him a graceful, almost ethereal quality. His jackal head becomes more stylized, its features sharpened to reflect both strength and sensitivity. His posture becomes more regal, often showing him standing tall with one foot forward, as if he is eternally in motion, guiding souls toward their destination. These artistic choices capture the essence of the guardian's dual nature, one part rooted in the natural world, and the other part elevated into divine authority. While the guardian's role becomes central in funerary context, his influence extends beyond the necropolis. People begin to carry small amulets shaped like his head or his full figure. These amulets are worn for protection during travel, childbirth, illness, and moments of uncertainty. The guardian becomes a divine figure to whom the living turn for courage and strength. This widespread devotion underscores his universal appeal. He is not a distant god of the elite, but a companion for all who face life's challenges. The expansion of mummification techniques during the Old Kingdom also enhances the guardian's prominence. As embalmers gain knowledge about the preservation of the body, they develop new rituals that require divine oversight. They call upon the guardian to watch over each phase of the process. They believe that he guides their hands as they cleanse, purify, and wrap the body. The embalming process becomes a sacred partnership between human effort and divine presence. In this partnership, the guardian ensures that the physical form remains suitable for the spirit's return. The increasing sophistication of funerary architecture also reflects the growing reverence for the guardian. Tombs become intricate structures with complex layouts, symbolic chambers, and decorated corridors. These architectural developments mirrored the imagined journey of the soul. Each passage, chamber, and doorway represents a stage of transition. The guardian's image appears in key positions throughout these structures on walls, lintels, and sarcophagi. Its placement reinforces his role as the constant companion who ensures that the soul never loses its way. As society becomes more interconnected, regional symbols begin to merge into a unified national mythology. The guardian is one of the first deities to achieve this level of unity. His presence is recognized in the north and the south, in small villages and large cities, in royal courts and humble homes. This widespread acceptance speaks to the universal human experience of death and the need for spiritual protection. Whether a person is a pharaoh or a farmer, the journey beyond life requires guidance. The guardian fulfills this need with unwavering reliability. The evolution of spiritual thought during this era begins to explore more abstract ideas surrounding the nature of the soul. Egyptians believe that the soul is composed of multiple parts, each with its own function and purpose. The Ka, the Ba, and the Ak become central concepts in funerary theology. The guardian is increasingly associated with ensuring that these components remain unified and strong. He protects the Ka's connection to the body, guides the Ba during its flight, and upholds the purity needed for the Akh to shine in the afterlife. His involvement in each part of the soul's journey reveals the depth of his influence in Egyptian religious understanding. With the growing emphasis on cosmic order, the guardian also becomes associated with the night sky. The Egyptians believed that the stars represent the souls of the blessed dead, shining eternally in the heavens. They imagined that the guardian watches these stars, ensuring that the spirits remain safe and at peace. Some stories describe him walking across the night sky, guiding newly departed souls toward their rightful place among the stars. These celestial associations elevate the guardian beyond his earthly origins, situating him within the cosmic order itself. As the Old Kingdom continues, the guardian's role becomes remarkably consistent across texts, rituals, and artwork. He is always portrayed as vigilant, protective, and impartial. He does not favor one soul over another. He does not judge based on wealth or status. His responsibility is universal. This impartiality makes him one of the most trusted deities in Egyptian religion. People believe that he sees the soul as it truly is, without illusion or bias. He guides without hesitation, protects without expectation, and watches without rest. This consistency strengthens the guardian's spiritual authority. When families prepare to bury their dead, they speak his name with confidence. When priests perform rituals, they invoke him with reverence. When artists carve his image, they do so with care. The guardian becomes synonymous with the promise that no soul will face the afterlife alone. His presence provides reassurance, easing the fears associated with the unknown. As the sun sets each day and the desert cools, the people of the Old Kingdom feel the presence of the guardian in the quiet of evening. They imagine him walking beneath the stars, watching over both the living and the dead. His footsteps echo across the sands, steady and eternal. And with each passing generation, his identity grows more defined, more powerful, and more beloved. Through all these transformations, one truth remains constant. The guardian stands as the embodiment of protection in a world where death is not an ending but a threshold. He is the silent companion at the edge of life, the guide whose light pierces the deepest darkness, and the divine presence who ensures that every soul finds its way. The Old Kingdom stands at its height, and with its growing complexity comes one of the most transformative developments in all of Egyptian religion, the dawn of true mummification. The practice that once consisted of simple wrappings and natural desert preservation evolves into a meticulous, sacred craft requiring knowledge, patience, and profound spiritual intention. It is during this era that the guardian's role expands dramatically, for he becomes not only the protector of the dead, but the divine master of the entire process of preservation. This transformation marks the beginning of a new chapter in funerary history, one in which the guardian's influence touches every stage of the journey from life to death. Mummification arises not merely from fear of decay, but from a deeply rooted belief that the body must remain whole for the soul to recognize it. Egyptians see the human form as a sacred vessel, shaped by the gods and imbued with divine energy. The Kie, the vital essence, must have a place to return to. The Ba, the component capable of movement, must be able to visit and unite with the body. The Akh, the transfigured spirit, must remain connected to its earthly form, even as it ascends to join the stars. The preservation of the body becomes an act of reverence, ensuring that these multiple aspects of the soul remain anchored and harmonious. As the desire for bodily preservation grows, families begin to entrust their dead to specialized workshops known as Per Nefertha House of Beauty, or more literally, House of Purification. These workshops are often located near necropolises, close to the tombs where the deceased will rest. The men who work in these places, the early embalmers, are more than craftsmen. They are ritual practitioners who treat the deceased with careful respect. They believe that every action they perform is observed by the guardian, who judges the purity of their intentions and the precision of their work. Within these workshops, The embalming process begins with ritual cleansing. The embalmers wash the body with water drawn from the Nile, a symbolic act representing rebirth. They use palm wine and fragrant oils to purify the skin. As they work, they recite prayers calling upon the guardian to watch over the process. They believe that he guides their hands, ensuring that they do not miss any detail. This ritual cleansing reflects the growing belief that purity is both physical and spiritual. The body must be cleansed so that the soul may be purified as well. During this early stage of mummification, embalmers begin to remove internal organs to prevent decay. The process is delicate, performed with care and precision. The organs are cleaned, wrapped, and placed in special containers. These containers, which will later evolve into the famous canopic jars, are initially simple but carry deep symbolic meaning. Each organ is associated with a particular aspect of the afterlife, and embalmers believe that the guardian oversees the protection of these vital components. They imagine him standing beside the body, ensuring that every organ is handled with respect. The removal of the brain is one of the most intriguing parts of mummification. Early embalmers use hook tools inserted through the nose to extract the soft tissues. This method reflects their growing understanding of preservation, though not necessarily of anatomy. The brain, viewed as unnecessary for the afterlife, is discarded. Yet, even in this act, embalmers recite prayers to the guardian, acknowledging his presence in every stage. Nothing is done without spiritual intention. It's cool. Once the organs are removed, the body is filled with natron, a natural salt mixture found in the Egyptian desert. Natron absorbs moisture and prevents decay. This step represents one of the most significant advancements in funerary science. The discovery that natron can preserve the body marks a turning point in the evolution of mummification. As the body dries, embalmers continue to pray, believing that the guardian oversees this transformation just as he oversees the journey of the soul. This slow drying process mirrors the slow transition between worlds. The guardian stands at the threshold, ensuring that the transition is smooth. After the drying period, which can last several weeks, embalmers remove the natron and begin to anoint the body with oils and resins. These substances not only protect the skin, but also symbolize spiritual enrichment. The scents of cedar, myrrh, and lotus fill the workshop, creating an atmosphere that feels sacred and serene. Embalmers believe that each anointing purifies the soul as well as the flesh. They invoke the guardian during each application, asking him to bless the body and prepare it for the final wrapping. Wrapping the body is an art form in itself. Embalmers use fine linen, wrapping the limbs separately before encasing the entire body in layers of cloth. Between the layers, they place amulets, small objects imbued with divine power. Some amulets represent life, others represent strength, and many carry the image of the guardian himself. These amulets serve as spiritual tools that the soul will use in the afterlife, and the guardian symbols provide protection on the long journey ahead. Each amulet is placed with intention, each layer of wrapping performed with care. The final wrapping of the head is particularly important. Embalmers sculpt the linen to resemble the features of the deceased, ensuring that the soul can recognize its earthly form. Over time, funerary masks will develop to enhance this recognition. Even in these early stages, the desire to maintain identity in the afterlife is clear. The guardian's presence is felt in every fold of linen. Embalmers believe he oversees the preservation of the individual's essence. The opening of the mouth ritual, already practiced in earlier times, becomes more elaborate during this period. Priests perform the ceremony using special tools shaped like the symbols of life and power. They touch the mouth, eyes, nose, and ears of the wrapped body, symbolically restoring the senses. This ritual ensures that the deceased can speak, see, breathe, and hear in the afterlife. The guardian is invoked as the one who grants spiritual vitality. He opens not only the physical mouth, but the pathway between realms. Without his blessing, the soul might wander aimlessly, unable to receive offerings or communicate with the divine. As the embalming process becomes more sophisticated, workshops expand their roles. They do not simply prepare the dead. They also provide guidance for families, helping them navigate the emotional and spiritual transition. Priests explained the purpose of each step, invoking the guardian's authority to reassure the grieving. The guardian becomes a bridge between the living and the dead, offering comfort and understanding. Families find solace in knowing that the guardian watches over their loved ones throughout the entire process. The rise of embalming creates new social roles within Egyptian society. Certain individuals become known for their skill in preparing the dead. These individuals earn respect and prestige. Their knowledge is passed down through generations, creating hereditary lines of embalmers. These families develop their own traditions, methods, and interpretations of ritual. Through these practices, the guardian's presence becomes part of their identity. They are not mere workers. They are servants of the guardian, entrusted with a sacred duty. The economic implications of mummification also shape society. Preparing the dead becomes a significant undertaking that requires resources. Families save offerings, purchase linen, procure oils, and pay for ritual services. The funerary industry becomes a vital part of the economy, and with its growth, the influence of the guardian expands even further. His image appears not only in tombs, but in workshops, markets, and households. People place his symbols in their homes for protection. Merchants sell amulets shaped like his head. His presence becomes woven into daily life. As mummification evolves, so too does funerary architecture. Tombs become more elaborate, with additional chambers designed specifically for the preservation of items used in the embalming process. Shelves hold jars of oils, containers of natron, and bundles of linen. These storage spaces reflect the increasing importance of preparation. Families believe that the guardian not only guides the soul, but sanctifies the physical space where transformation occurs. Tombs become sanctuaries of sacred science, places where the divine and the practical blend seamlessly. The guardian's connection to purification grows deeper as Egyptians explore more abstract concepts of the soul. They believe that death is not a single moment, but a prolonged transition. The guardian becomes the overseer of this transition, ensuring that the soul sheds its earthly burdens and enters the afterlife with clarity. Priests describe him as he who protects the pure and he who separates shadow from light. These titles reveal a growing understanding of the guardian's role as a spiritual purifier rather than merely a protector. This expanding role influences how people prepare for death during their own lifetimes. Individuals begin to engage in personal purification rituals, believing that the guardian observes their actions. They perform acts of kindness, honesty, and humility, hoping to stand before the guardian with a heart free of deceit. They wear amulets bearing his form to remind themselves of the moral path. The guardian's influence extends beyond funerary contexts and becomes part of ethical life. The guardian also becomes associated with the sacred tools used in mummification. Embalmers treat their knives, vessels, and brushes with reverence, believing that the guardian blesses these objects. Some tools are inscribed with symbols representing his guidance. These tools become extensions of divine will, instruments that transform the mortal body into an eternal vessel. The more refined the tools become, the more sacred they feel, mirroring the increasing sophistication of the ritual. At the height of mummification's evolution, the guardian's image becomes inseparable from the process itself. He is invoked in every prayer, represented in every amulet, and carved into every tomb. His presence becomes synonymous with safety, purification, and the promise of eternal life. Families speak his name with reverence. Priests honor him with devotion. Embalmers trust him with their sacred work. The guardian becomes more than a guide. He becomes the master of transformation. He stands at the threshold, ensuring that the deceased passes from one state of existence to another without fear. He protects the integrity of the soul, purifies the essence of the person, and guides them toward the light that awaits beyond the darkness. And as the practice of mummification reaches new heights, the guardian's role expands into a divine mastery that will define him throughout the ages as Anubis, the Lord of sacred preservation and the eternal protector of the dead. The desert night settles over the necropolises with a stillness so complete that even the wind seems to pause out of reverence. Lamps flicker in the entrance chambers of tombs as priests finish their nightly rituals, whispering invocations that echo softly against the stone walls. These quiet moments mark the beginning of a new chapter in the evolution of Egyptian belief. For it is during this airway, the transition from the Old Kingdom into the early Middle Kingdom, that the guardian's role expands into the realm of written magic. The first great funerary texts, the pyramid texts, and later the coffin texts, rise from the hands of scribes and from the depths of spiritual imagination. In these inscriptions, the guardian steps fully into his role as guide, protector, and navigator of the shadowed paths of the afterlife. The unseen world, once glimpsed only through ritual and oral tradition, now takes on vivid form through written words carved into stone. The earliest pyramid texts appear in the inner chambers of royal tombs. These texts are not mere writings. They are doorways. They form a map of the landscape the soul must cross after death. They describe rivers of darkness, stairways of light, cosmic gates guarded by powerful beings, and trials that test the essence of the deceased. For the first time in recorded history, the afterlife becomes a structured domain, rich with imagery and meaning. And standing at the boundary of this domain is the guardian, whose role takes on new clarity and depth. In the pyramid texts, he appears not only as a protector, but as a divine functionary whose tasks are essential to the king's rebirth. He is called upon to untie the knots that bind the soul to the earthly realm. He is asked to open the doors of the sky so the pharaoh may ascend. He is invoked as he who knows the secret ways, a title that reflects the increasing complexity of the spiritual journey. These inscriptions portray him as a being who understands every passage, every hidden doorway, and every trial that the deceased may encounter. The guardian's knowledge is not symbolic, it's literal. He carries the secrets of the cosmos. The pyramid texts also describe the guardian's role in protecting the soul from malevolent forces. They speak of spirits who linger in the shadows, waiting for vulnerable souls, and of entities who seek to confuse or deceive the deceased. Against these dangers, the guardian stands as a vigilant defender. His ability to sense danger with the sharpness of a jackal's hearing becomes a spiritual metaphor. His watchfulness ensures that no harm approaches the king during the journey. Even in the most perilous parts of the afterlife, the guardian walks beside the soul, guiding it with calm authority. As these texts develop, the guardian also becomes associated with the heart of the spiritual landscape, the realm of transition between light and darkness. This realm is described as a place of shifting shadows, where the soul must confront memories, fears, and unresolved aspects of life. The guardian's presence in this realm reflects the belief that he sees beyond the surface. He understands the internal struggles of the soul. He guides, not through force, but through knowledge and compassion. This compassion marks an important evolution. Earlier depictions focused on his vigilance and strength. Now, he becomes a figure of understanding, capable of guiding souls through emotional and spiritual trials. The rise of the coffin texts during the Middle Kingdom marks a dramatic shift in Egyptian funerary beliefs. These texts, derived from the earlier pyramid texts, are written not only for kings, but for nobles, officials, and increasingly common people. This expansion reflects a profound transformation in Egyptian spirituality. The afterlife becomes accessible to all. Every person, regardless of status, is now believed to have a place in the eternal realm. And with this expanded access, the guardian's role grows even more universal. The coffin text portrayed the afterlife as a vast and intricate landscape filled with gates, islands, caverns, and celestial waters. The soul must navigate each section with precision. These texts describe the guardian in vivid detail. He stands at crossroads. He appears at sacred thresholds. He whispers warnings to the soul. He leads the way through darkness, his form shimmering like black marble under moonlight. He is no longer confined to the necropolis. He moves through the afterlife itself, guiding souls across its many layers. One of the most striking developments in the coffin texts is the portrayal of the guardian as the opener of the ways. This title emphasizes his ability to unlock paths that are inaccessible to others. Some texts describe him parting walls of darkness. Others portray him breaking seals that block the soul's passage. His ability to open roads reflects his mastery of transitions. He is the divine guide who walks ahead, creating safe passage where none previously existed. As these texts grow more elaborate, so too does the mythology surrounding the guardian's involvement in the judgment of the soul. Although the fully developed scene of the weighing of the heart will emerge later, early hints appear in the coffin texts. These writings hint at moments in which the soul must confront its deeds. The guardian is present during these confrontations, not as judge, but as silent witness. He knows the truth of each soul's life. He understands the weight of the choices made. His calm presence reassures the soul, even as it faces the consequences of its actions. These texts also describe the guardian's role in reuniting the soul's different components. They portray him guiding the BA as it flies through the afterlife, protecting it from forces that would attempt to sever its connection to the body. They describe him guarding the Ka as it returns to the tomb at night to receive offerings. They depict him assisting the Ankh, the transfigured spirit, as it emerges from the body's shadow to join the eternal stars. The guardian becomes the orchestrator of spiritual unity. His role is not limited to guiding the soul forward. He also ensures that the soul remains whole. At this stage in Egypt's spiritual evolution, the concept of the Duat, the underworld, takes on more defined structure. Initially, a simple idea of the place where souls traveled, it now becomes a rich and multidimensional domain. The Duat is described as a landscape of rivers that flow backward, fields that stretch endlessly, mountains that breathe, and lakes of fire. It is here that the guardian's presence becomes most essential. His ability to navigate this realm reflects his mastery of both the natural and supernatural. Priests teach that the guardian moves through the Duat with ease, his footsteps silent, his senses attuned to the faintest disturbance. The guardian also becomes associated with the threshold between night and day. Egyptians believe that during the night, the sun god travels through the Do, battling chaos before rising at dawn. In some stories, the guardian appears as the guide who clears the path for the sun's journey. He is depicted as walking ahead of the solar bark, warning of dangers and protecting the divine light. This association elevates him beyond funerary contexts. He becomes a cosmic force whose vigilance ensures that the sun rises, that order prevails, and that chaos is held at bay. In artwork from this era, the guardian begins to appear with greater detail and symbolism. In tomb paintings, he stands at the head of the coffin, eyes forward, staff in hand. Small wooden figurines placed inside coffins, he is shown with a peaceful expression, suggesting reassurance rather than fear. Some depictions show him standing over a reclining figure, his hand hovering protectively. These images reflect a shift in how the Egyptians perceive death. It is no longer merely a moment of fear. It is a journey watched over by a divine companion who understands its mysteries. As the coffin texts become widespread, ordinary families begin to participate more fully in funerary rituals. Priests help them select specific spells to write on coffins or on papyrus placed within the wrappings. Many of these spells invoke the guardian explicitly. They ask him to light the way, They ask him to drive away danger. They ask him to protect the heart, preserve the name, and guard the tomb. These spells reveal a personal relationship between the deceased and the guardian. The soul speaks to him directly, trusting him like a close companion. This era also marks the growth of magical amulets associated with the guardian. Some are shaped like his head. Others depict him seated on a small throne. These amulets are placed on the body in specific positions, each one corresponding to a part of the soul or a stage of the journey. The amulets represent the guardian's constant presence. He is not only there at the moment of death, he is there in every moment beyond death. The deepening complexity of funerary texts and rituals also leads to new philosophical ideas about justice. Egyptians begin to reflect more deeply on the morality of life. They believe that the soul carries its actions with it into the afterlife, and that the journey through the Duat reveals the truth of those actions. The guardian becomes associated with this revelation. He sees through illusions. He recognizes truth. Though he does not pass judgment, he ensures that the soul cannot hide from the consequences of its choices. The development of individual tomb autobiographies inscriptions, written by the deceased describing their lives, also reflects this rising moral consciousness. These inscriptions often mention the guardian indirectly, referring to the desire to walk the straight path or stand pure before the gods. People believe that living with integrity ensures that the guardian will guide them safely after death. In this way, the guardian influences ethical behavior during life, not only spiritual destiny after death. The evolution of beliefs during this era transforms the role of the guardian from a protector of bodies to a protector of souls. He watches over the entire process of death, guiding, cleansing, and accompanying each person as they move from the physical realm into the spiritual. His identity becomes synonymous with trust. Families speak his name with hope. Priests invoke him with reverence. Artists depict him with dignity. Scribes record his presence in words meant to last for eternity. Through the emergence of the pyramid texts and the coffin texts, the guardian becomes the master navigator of the unseen world. He knows every path, every danger, and every hidden passage. He sees the fears that linger in the soul and offers guidance without judgment. He opens doors that cannot be opened by mortal hands. He stands at the boundary between shadow and light, offering safe passage to all who call upon him. And as Egypt moves toward the full flowering of its middle kingdom, the guardian's presence grows even stronger. His role expands beyond the tomb and the Duat. He becomes a symbol of cosmic order, moral clarity, and eternal protection. The path through the afterlife is vast, complex, and filled with mystery, but the guardian walks it first, lighting the way for every soul who follows. The Middle Kingdom dawns with a sense of renewal, rising from the political fractures and hardships that marked the end of the Old Kingdom. The reunification of Egypt brings not only stability, but a flowering of literature, philosophy, spirituality, and art. It is an age in which everyday people, not only kings and nobles, gain access to complex spiritual ideas. The afterlife becomes a universal hope, rather than a privilege reserved for the elite. In this expanding spiritual horizon, the guardian's role also deepens. He becomes not merely a figure invoked for protection or ritual, but a divine companion whose presence accompanies every soul, regardless of status, lineage, or wealth. Life along the Nile grows more organized. Fields flourish under renewed agricultural management. Towns prosper. Families experience a greater sense of security. With this stability comes greater introspection. People begin to reflect on their place in the cosmos, the nature of their actions, and the destiny of their souls. The rise of personal spirituality shapes funerary practices in profound ways. Ordinary individuals seek comfort in the same divine protection once reserved for kings. They turn to the guardian, whose impartiality makes him approachable, whose diligence makes him trustworthy, and whose connection to the afterlife makes him indispensable. The literature of the Middle Kingdom reflects this shift toward universal spiritual access. Texts such as the dialogue of a man with his Ba and the instruction of Merikari hint at deeper inner struggles, questions about purpose, morality, suffering, and hope. These works show a new emotional dimension emerging in Egyptian thought. People no longer view the afterlife simply as a continuation of life, or as a domain navigable only by kings. They imagine it as a realm filled with light, shadow, trial, and renewal. The guardian becomes the companion who understands these struggles, who offers reassurance when doubt fills the heart. During this era, the coffin texts become widespread, written on coffins belonging to officials, artisans, priests, and even common families with enough resources. Their proliferation reveals a shift in funerary ideology. The afterlife has opened its gates to all, and the guardian is at the center of this universal accessibility. He appears in spell after spell, invoked to protect, guide, advise, and illuminate. Some texts describe him arriving when the soul first awakens after death, offering a steady hand. Others portray him observing the soul as it takes its first uncertain steps through the unseen world. His presence becomes intimately connected with the soul's first experience of the afterlife. In the Middle Kingdom imagination, the afterlife is no longer a single landscape, but a layered realm, each layer requiring knowledge, strength, and divine companionship. The guardian becomes the one who recognizes each transition. He guides the soul from the tomb into the Duat, through rivers and caverns, past gods and spirits, toward the place of judgment, and eventually into the eternal fields. His knowledge of the terrain symbolizes spiritual wisdom. He knows the shortcuts that avoid danger, the hidden doors that lead to safety, and the rituals needed to bypass obstacles. The guardian's character softens in this era. Earlier texts emphasized his vigilance and strength. Now, stories portray him with a gentleness that appeals to the common person. He becomes a figure of empathy, one who understands human sorrow and fear. Some coffin texts describe him speaking words of comfort to the deceased, urging them not to fear the darkness. Others depict him guiding lost souls who wander, helping them find their way. This compassionate portrayal reflects the Middle Kingdom's emphasis on emotional connection and moral integrity. During this period, offerings to the guardian become more personal. Families place small figurines of him beside the deceased, believing these objects carry his presence. Some of these figurines show him standing with one hand extended, as if guiding someone forward. Others depict him seated with a calm expression, symbolizing reassurance. The artistry of these objects grows more refined. Their craftsmanship reflects the belief that honoring the guardian with beauty strengthens his presence in the tomb. One of the most significant transformations during this time is the expansion of the guardian's relationship to Osiris, the god of resurrection and lord of the afterlife. Earlier mythology kept their roles separate, but Middle Kingdom theology begins to weave their narratives together. Osiris becomes the ruler of the afterlife, the eternal king who died and was reborn. The guardian, associated with protection and the opening of pathways, becomes essential to Osiris's mythology. Some stories describe him as the one who helped prepare Osiris after his death, purifying him and guiding him toward resurrection. This connection elevates the guardian's role from a protector of individual souls to a divine figure central to the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. The growing prominence of Osiris creates a more structured afterlife, one in which judgment and purity become central concerns. The guardian becomes the conductor who leads souls toward the throne of Osiris. He does not judge them, that responsibility lies elsewhere, but he ensures they reach the place of judgment safely. He walks beside the soul during moments of uncertainty and stands behind it when it faces divine scrutiny. This portrayal reflects the increasing emphasis on moral accountability in Egyptian religion. As these myths develop, the guardian symbolism becomes more closely associated with truth and clarity. Some texts describe him as one who recognizes deceit, a being whose gaze sees through illusions. This attribute reflects the belief that the afterlife exposes the truth of one's life. The guardian's ability to perceive truth becomes essential for guiding souls through the complexities of the Duat. His impartiality ensures that he aids all souls equally, regardless of their past struggles. This quality makes him beloved among the people. They trust him because he sees them for who they truly are. The Middle Kingdom also brings advancements in tomb design and funerary art. Tombs grow more elaborate, filled with scenes depicting the deceased in daily life, surrounded by loved ones, servants, and offerings. These scenes express the desire for continuity in the afterlife, a continuation not only of life's comforts, but of relationships and identity. The guardian often appears in these scenes at the edges, standing at entrances, observing silently. His presence in artwork symbolizes protection over the entire tomb, ensuring that the deceased remains safe during eternity. Temple complexes dedicated to funerary rites expand during this era. Priests who serve in these temples become highly specialized, focusing on different aspects of the afterlife. Some prepare offerings, others maintain ritual purity, still others recite the spells that ensure safe passage. Among these priests are those dedicated to the guardian, known for their calm demeanor and precise ritual knowledge. They serve as intermediaries between families and the divine. Their devotion ensures that the rituals calling upon the guardian remain consistent, precise, and powerful. The rise of personal piety in the Middle Kingdom changes how individuals relate to the guardian. People begin to write private prayers on small pieces of pottery, invoking him to guide them during dreams, illness, or personal crisis. They speak to him as they would to a friend or mentor. Believe he hears their fears and understands their struggles. This personal connection strengthens the guardian's role as not only a divine figure of the dead, but also a spiritual presence for the living. As trade and diplomacy bring Egypt into contact with neighboring civilizations, new ideas filter into its spiritual landscape. Some foreign concepts influence Egyptian beliefs subtly, contributing to the rich symbolism of the guardian. Yet, despite these influences, his core nature remains consistent. He is always the protector, always the guide, always the one who stands beside the soul in its most vulnerable moments. The Middle Kingdom also introduces new types of amulets designed specifically to invoke the guardian's protection. These amulets range from small carved stones to intricately shaped pieces of gold or faience. Each amulet is placed in a specific position on the body during mummification. Some rest over the heart, others lie near the throat or the wrists. Their placement reflects the belief that each part of the soul requires protection. These amulets are often inscribed with spells that call upon the guardian to shield the wearer from darkness, confusion, or harm. Perhaps the most profound change during this era is the belief that the guardian walks not only ahead of the soul, but also behind it, creating a circle of protection. This imagery appears in both coffin text spells and tomb art. The guardian becomes the enveloping presence who ensures that the soul is never exposed, never unprotected, never alone. Its protection becomes a cocoon, wrapping the deceased in spiritual security. Artistic expressions of the guardian from the Middle Kingdom show him with a greater sense of depth and emotion. His jackal head is rendered with thoughtful detail, his long ears alert yet peaceful. His human body is shown with a posture of assurance, often with one arm raised in a gesture of guidance. These images evoke both dignity and tenderness. They portray a being who understands the fears of the human heart and who stands ready to guide it through darkness. In the Middle Kingdom imagination, the afterlife becomes a place of limitless possibilities. The deceased can transform into birds, serpents, stars, or even divine beings. This transformative potential requires guidance, for the journey involves many transitions. The guardian becomes the master of transformation, helping souls navigate their changing forms. Some coffin sects describe him teaching the soul how to pass through walls of flame or how to speak the words needed to summon light. Others portray him assisting the soul in learning the names of the beings it will encounter. This emphasis on knowledge reflects the belief that the afterlife is not only a place of judgment, but a place of learning. The Middle Kingdom ends with an Egypt deeply transformed. The guardian, once a distant desert spirit, has become an eternal companion. He has become woven into the spiritual fabric of society, honored by all, trusted by all, and loved by all. His presence fills tombs, workshops, temples, households, and hearts. He guides not only kings, but farmers, scribes, artisans, and children. Through the expanding richness of the coffin texts, the growth of personal piety, and the universal hope for eternal life, the guardian becomes the soul's closest ally in the unseen world. He stands as both protector and guide, both purifier and companion. His vigilance ensures that every soul, no matter how humble, has the opportunity to reach the eternal fields of peace and light. As Egypt moves toward the new kingdom and the grand theological transformations that await, the guardian stands ready to take on new roles, deeper meanings, and even greater spiritual authority. The path ahead will bring him into the realm of cosmic judgment, divine justice, and eternal rebirth. But through every change, one truth endures. He is the eternal presence beside every soul, the one who walks the shadows so that others may walk in light. The Middle Kingdom reaches its height, and with it comes the crystallization of one of the most influential theological relationships in all of Egyptian history. The merging of the guardian's role with the increasingly dominant figure of Osiris. What began as two separate traditions, one rooted in the desert jackal guardian of tombs, the other in the slain and resurrected king of the gods, slowly intertwines into a unified doctrine that will define the Egyptian view of death, judgment, and eternal life for centuries to come. This merging does not diminish the guardian's identity. Instead, it expands it, deepening his responsibilities, refining his symbolic meaning, and strengthening his presence at every stage of the soul's journey. Osiris, once a regional deity associated with fertility and agriculture, rises during the Middle Kingdom into the unparalleled Lord of the Afterlife. His myth full of tragedy, betrayal, death, dismemberment, and amablement, and miraculous rebirth, rebirthinates deeply invested in moral order and spiritual continuity. Egyptians see in Osiris the promise of renewal, not only for kings, but for ordinary people. The guardian, whose ancient role as protector predates Osiris's widespread dominance, becomes the essential link between the deceased and this newly formalized divine order. Early theological texts begin to portray the guardian in the service of Osiris. He is described as the one who prepared Osiris's body after his death, carefully protecting it from harm. He guards the sacred wrappings, oversees the purification process, and stands vigil while Isis and her sister gather the fragments of Osiris's body. Though these are mythic events, they reflect the guardian's growing association with the sanctity of resurrection. His actions in myth mirror those performed by embalmers in daily life. He becomes the divine prototype of the embalmer, the one who perfected the art and passed its sacred principles to humankind. In these stories, the guardian's loyalty to Osiris reflects his unwavering loyalty to the natural order. Egyptians interpret this loyalty as proof that he is the ideal protector for any soul seeking entry into the afterlife. He protected Osiris, the divine king. Therefore, he will protect them. This connection deepens the guardian's role in funerary rituals, especially those involving purification, wrapping, and the safeguarding of the body. Families placing the deceased in tombs believe that they reenact the divine acts performed after Osiris's death, with the guardian watching over every step. As Osiris rises in prominence, the afterlife becomes more organized. no longer a loosely imagined realm of shadows. The Duat becomes a structured landscape ruled by Osiris. It contains challenges, rivers, gates, guardians, and trials. It is a place where souls are transformed through trial and purification. Ka, the guardian, becomes the essential guide through this expanding spiritual topography. Whereas Osiris rules the realm, the guardian knows its pathways. He becomes the psychopomp, the guide of souls whose knowledge ensures that no person wanders lost in the immensity of the afterlife. In the coffin texts and later funerary writings, Egyptians describe the guardian standing at the side of Osiris's throne during key moments. He watches as souls enter the great hall. He guards the dais where Osiris sits in judgment. In some texts, he prepares the heart to be weighed, ensuring that it is pure and free of deception. In others, he ensures that the scales function properly, free from interference by malevolent beings. His presence is essential to the process of truth and judgment. Even though he is not the judge, he is the one who clears the illusions, protects the vulnerable soul, and ensures fairness. This growing association with judgment leads to more elaborate symbolism. The guardian becomes linked to Mat, the goddess of truth, harmony, and cosmic balance. He does not enforce Mat, but he upholds it. His sharp senses symbolize the ability to perceive dishonesty. His calm presence symbolizes impartiality. His role in guiding the soul to the place of judgment becomes a reflection of the Egyptian belief that justice is an eternal principle, present both in life and in death. As the guardian's responsibilities expand, artistic representations of him begin to change. Some depictions show him walking beside Osiris, staff in hand, symbolizing unity between guide and ruler. Others portrayed him behind the throne, watching over the proceedings with attentive silence. More elaborate coffin art shows him guarding key gates in the afterlife, holding symbols of authority that represent his mastery of transitions. These artistic choices reveal a deepening theological understanding. The guardian is not subordinate to Osiris, nor is he equal. He is a partner whose role harmonizes with Osiris's authority. Together, they form the backbone of funerary theology. During this period, the opening of the mouth ritual evolves further. Previously associated with restoring the senses of the deceased, it now becomes a symbolic reenactment of Osiris's rebirth. Priests performing the ritual invoke both Osiris and the guardian, reflecting the merging of their roles. The guardian becomes the one who prepares the deceased to rise, just as he once prepared Osiris. The ritual tools used in this ceremony begin to feature symbols of the guardian, further integrating him into the spiritual fabric of resurrection. This merging of myth and ritual also transforms how Egyptians perceive the guardian's personality. Earlier generations viewed him as a silent protector, distant yet reliable. Middle Kingdom theology, enriched by new literary styles, gives him greater emotional depth. He is now described as compassionate, patient, and wise, qualities that align him with the moral integrity of Osiris. Texts portray him as speaking encouragement to trembling souls. He offers reassurance when they face difficult trials. He is no longer only the eternal watchman. He becomes a divine shepherd, guiding souls toward renewal. As funerary art evolves, so does funerary architecture. Tombs grow more complex, reflecting the increasingly detailed understanding of the afterlife. Corridors represent the pathways of the Duat. Chambers symbolize stages of transformation. Niche's house, statues of the guardian, each positioned strategically to protect specific parts of the tomb. Some chambers contain multiple images of him, one watching over the entrance, one standing near the sarcophagus, one beside Osiris's symbolic representation. Its placements reflect the belief that the guardian watches from every direction, shielding the deceased from all harm. The evolving role of Osiris, combined with the guardian's deepening responsibilities, leads to new theological questions about destiny and rebirth. Egyptians begin to explore the idea that every soul undergoes a symbolic death and rebirth. not only in the afterlife, but throughout life itself. Okay? They believe that whenever a person experiences suffering, transformation follows. This view mirrors the story of Osiris' death, followed by renewal. The guardian becomes the spiritual presence who guides the soul through these inner deaths, whether they occur in life or beyond. Stories from this era describe the guardian leading souls through scenes of darkness, helping them confront memories of pain or regret. He encourages them to release what weighs them down. He protects them when they feel vulnerable. In these stories, the guardian becomes an embodiment of compassion during inner transformation. His presence reflects the Egyptian belief that spiritual rebirth requires both courage and divine guidance. The guardian becomes the being who offers both. Okay? As the Middle Kingdom matures, the guardian's role in the afterlife becomes inseparable from the concept of moral purity. Egyptians believe that the deceased must approach Osiris with a heart free from deception. They imagine the guardian overseeing the cleansing of the heart. Some texts describe him extracting spiritual impurities. Others portray him lifting burdens from the soul. These acts symbolize his role in preparing the deceased for judgment, a task that complements Osiris's authority. This theological integration reshapes Egyptian ethics. People begin to approach life with the awareness that their actions will be revealed in the afterlife. They view the guardian as the silent observer of their deeds. His watchfulness encourages moral behavior. They believe he recognizes honesty, kindness, humility, and courage. They trust that he will guide them with greater care if they live with integrity. This belief transforms the guardian into not only a protector of the dead, but a guardian of the living's conscience. As the coffin texts spread, the merging of Osiris and the guardian becomes clearer in spells that describe their joint roles. Some spells portray the guardian leading the deceased to Osiris's throne. Others depict him opening the way to the field of reeds, the eternal paradise of the blessed after judgment is past. Hey, these texts give ordinary people access to rituals that once belonged only to kings. This democratization of the afterlife strengthens the guardian's universal appeal. He becomes a divine presence who belongs to everyone. During the late Middle Kingdom, funerary objects become more elaborate. Wooden coffins are covered in intricate scenes depicting the soul's journey. A king appears in these scenes with increasing regularity. Sometimes he stands among the stars, guiding the soul upward. Other times he walks through the Duat, clearing the path. These scenes create a visual narrative that the deceased can follow in the afterlife. The guardian becomes the central figure in these visual stories, reinforcing his role as the soul's guide. The merging of Osiris and the guardian also influences temple rituals. Some temples honor Osiris with elaborate festivals, reenacting his death and resurrection. During these festivals, priests portraying the guardian perform the role of protector and purifier. They stand beside the statue of Osiris, guarding it as it is moved through symbolic rituals. This performance strengthens the cultural association between the guardian and the cycle of rebirth. As the Middle Kingdom draws to a close, Egyptian spirituality becomes more philosophically unified. Osiris represents the promise of resurrection and eternal life. The guardian represents the safe journey toward that promise. Together, they form the foundation of funerary theology. Their combined roles shape the Egyptian worldview. Life is a journey, death is a transition, and rebirth is the reward. The guardian ensures that this journey is safe. Osiris ensures that the destination is meaningful. By the time Egypt moves toward the new kingdom, the guardian's identity has transformed dramatically. He is no longer only the divine watchman of ancient desert burials. He has become the trusted companion of souls, the guide through cosmic trials, the protector of spiritual integrity, and the one who stands beside Osiris in the hall of judgment. His role has expanded into a universal spiritual presence, one that comforts the living and leads the dead into eternity. From this point forward, the guardian's involvement with Osiris will only deepen. The new kingdom will bring forth the most detailed depiction yet of the afterlife, the famous judgment scenes that revealed the ultimate unity of divine justice and protection. And when those scenes unfold, the guardian will stand in the center, as he always has, guiding every soul toward truth, renewal, and eternal light. The new kingdom rises like a tide of brilliance across Egypt, ushering in an era of grand temples, towering monuments, and a flourishing of theology that reaches its greatest clarity. This is the age in which the Egyptian vision of the afterlife becomes more structured, more visually expressive, and more philosophically refined than ever before. Out of this vast spiritual flowering emerges one of the most iconic scenes in all of human religious imagination, the weighing of the heart. And at the heart of this sign, calm, watchful, key stands the guardian who has walked beside the dead since the earliest days of desert burials. His role expands dramatically during this era, for he becomes not only the guide through the shadows, but the administrator of divine truth itself. It's the Book of the Dead, a collection of spells refined from the earlier pyramid and coffin texts, becomes the primary guidebook for the soul. Unlike previous texts, which were carved into stone or wood, the Book of the Dead is written on scrolls of papyrus that accompany the deceased in their coffin. This development makes funerary knowledge more accessible, portable, and personal. Every spell, illustration, and invocation is designed to assist the deceased in navigating the dangers of the Duat, confronting their past actions, and reaching the promised field of eternal peace. Among these spells, the most famous scenes depict the Hall of Two Truths, the sacred chamber where the soul undergoes judgment. The Egyptians imagined this hall as a vast, solemn space filled with divine light and silence, where gods and spirits gather to witness the most important moment of a soul's eternity. At the center of this chamber stands the Great Scale, a symbol of cosmic balance. The heart of the deceased, representing truth, character, and memory, is placed on one side. On the other side lies the feather of Mat, the embodiment of truth, justice, harmony, and moral order. It is here, in this moment of profound vulnerability, that the guardian stands closest to the soul. Although he is not the judge, that role belongs to Osiris. He becomes the facilitator of the entire process. The Egyptians imagine him leading the soul gently into the hall, offering comfort even as the soul trembles with uncertainty. His presence reassures the deceased that the process will be fair, that no deception will cloud the scales, and that the truth of their life will be revealed clearly and justly. His impartial nature makes him the perfect overseer for this sacred moment. In artistic depictions, the guardian is often shown adjusting the scale or standing beside it, his long jackaled ears alert, his posture calm and steady. This imagery reveals much about how the Egyptians understood his role. He does not manipulate the judgment, nor does he sway its outcome. Instead, he ensures that the process unfolds with perfect balance. He guards the scale from interference, protects the heart from outside forces, and observes every detail with unwavering focus. His silent watchfulness symbolizes the Egyptian belief that divine justice requires protection, not from corruption, but from chaos. The guardian's relationship with Mat becomes more pronounced during this era. Mat is not merely truth. She is the cosmic order that keeps the universe stable. Her presence in the hall signifies that judgment is not punishment, but alignment. When the guardian ensures that the scale is balanced, he is not administering moral punishment. He is facilitating harmony. His role becomes an extension of Mat's principles, isti, clarity, and equilibrium. Together, they maintain the integrity of the spiritual cosmos. As the soul's heart is weighed, the guardian stands beside the scale, observing its movement. If the heart balances with the feather, the soul is declared pure enough to continue its journey. If the heart is heavy burdened by dishonesty, cruelty, or imbalance, the soul faces peril. In some depictions, the guardian stands ready to escort the soul toward Osiris for final approval. In others, he remains beside the scale, while Ammit, The devourer of the unworthy waits nearby, but the guardian never acts as the executioner. His duty is protection, not destruction. Even for a soul found wanting, he offers dignity, ensuring that the process remains orderly and sacred. The guardian's involvement in judgment deepens the Egyptians' moral understanding of life. They began to view the heart as a sacred record of actions, thoughts, and intentions. It cannot be altered or hidden. Every truth and every falsehood resides within it. The guardian's presence emphasizes this truth. He is the one who watched over the person during life, observing every action silently and impartially. His role in judgment reflects the continuity between life and death. He knows the soul's truth because he stood beside it from the beginning. As the Book of the Dead grows more detailed, new spells emphasize the guardian's role as a moral guide. Some spells ask him to stand beside me on the day of judgment. Others request that he protect the heart from false witness. Still others call upon him to recognize my truth and speak my name before the gods. These appeals reveal the deep trust Egyptians place in him. They do not fear his presence. They rely on it. In the Hall of Two Truths, Osiris presides as the judge, flanked by divine beings who assist in the process. In this majestic setting, the guardian stands as the most familiar figure. Osiris is distant, regal, wrapped in layers of symbolism and cosmic authority. The guardian, however, is the one who has walked with the soul through doubt, fear, and transition. His presence bridges the human and the divine. He is the companion who understands the soul's journey intimately. Beyond the judgment scene, the New Kingdom imagination portrays the guardian in multiple roles throughout the Duat. He appears guarding gates, checking seals, clearing pathways, and guiding the deceased through treacherous landscapes. Dada becomes more vividly imagined in this era. It is described as a place filled with rivers of fire, caverns of darkness, serpents of chaos, and challenges that test the soul's courage. Through all these trials, the guardian remains steadfast. His vigilance ensures that the soul reaches judgment unscathed. This era also strengthens the guardian's association with ritual purity. Priests performing mummification invoke him repeatedly, calling upon him to protect the sanctity of the body. The embalming process becomes more elaborate, incorporating new tools, incantations, and symbols. Priests recite passages from the Book of the Dead, invoking the guardian as the master of sacred preservation. His connection to the heart deepens further. Priests ask him to cleanse the heart of spiritual impurities, preparing it for the weighing process. These rituals reflect the belief that purity is not achieved only after death, but cultivated throughout life. The guardian's presence extends into royal ideology as well. Pharaohs invoked him as a divine supporter of kingship, a protector not only of their bodies, but of their legacy. Some royal tombs depict him guarding the king's name, ensuring its eternal survival. Others show him guiding the king's ba as it transforms into a divine form. His involvement in royal funerary texts reflects the belief that the destiny of the king mirrors the destiny of the universe. The guardian's protection ensures cosmic stability. In everyday life, personal devotion to the guardian increases. People carry amulets bearing his likeness, believing he watches over them. Some households place small statues of him near their doorways, invoking his protection against illness, misfortune, or malevolent spirits. His impartial nature makes him approachable to all. Farmers, soldiers, scribes, and artisans turn to him with prayers for guidance and safety. This widespread devotion reflects the belief that he understands the struggles of ordinary people as deeply as he understands the journey of kings. As the new kingdom progresses, the guardian's connection to the heart becomes symbolic of emotional truth as well as moral truth. Egyptians begin to describe the heart as the seat of conscience, memory, and intention. In life, people strive to live with a light heart, avoiding actions that weigh it down. The guardian becomes the divine reminder of this principle. His watchful presence encourages people to live with integrity, kindness, and honesty. They believe that he sees their actions and supports them when they choose the path of truth. The elaborate funerary art of the New Kingdom further immortalizes the guardian's role. Tomb walls burst with color and detail, depicting scenes of the Duat with vivid imagery. In these paintings, the guardian appears as a calm figure amidst overwhelming chaos. Flames rise, serpents coil, demons lurk, but the guardian remains composed. His presence reassures the deceased that fear will not overwhelm them. His calm posture symbolizes the promise of safe passage. The artistry of this era also reflects theological refinement. In many tombs, the guardian is depicted with a black jackal head, the color symbolizing fertility, renewal, and the rich, fertile soil of the Nile. This blackness contrasts with the whiteness of the linen wrappings, symbolizing the balance between life and death. His sleek form embodies eternal youth. His posture conveys readiness. Every detail reflects his divine mastery. The weighing of the heart scene becomes the pinnacle of this artistic expression. The guardian stands beside the scale, often with one hand resting gently upon it. His presence conveys respect for the soul's truth. The calm precision of his posture symbolizes the honesty required for judgment. Artists portray him not as imposing, but as dignified, representing the belief that judgment is not a terrifying moment, but a moment of clarity. As the New Kingdom moves through its dynasties, the guardian's role becomes inseparable from the Egyptian understanding of death. He is no longer merely opener of the ways or lord of the sacred land. He becomes the divine embodiment of guidance, truth, and protection. His presence ensures that no soul faces judgment alone. He stands with the deceased, offering comfort even in the face of cosmic truth. The New Kingdom eventually brings Egypt into contact with foreign powers, leading to new ideas and artistic influences. Yet, through every change, the guardian's role remains constant. He remains the calm watcher beside the scale, the protector of the heart, the guide through the Duat, and the companion of every soul. His presence transcends political shifts, cultural exchanges, and evolving artistic styles. As the era nears its end, the guardian stands firmly at the center of Egyptian belief. He has become the divine protector, not only of tombs, but of truth itself. Through his presence in the judgment hall, he transforms fear into understanding, uncertainty into reassurance, and darkness into transition. He remains the eternal guide, ensuring that each soul finds its rightful place in the cosmic order. And as Egypt prepares to move into the complexities of the late New Kingdom and beyond, the guardian's legacy continues to deepen. His role in judgment becomes the spiritual foundation that will echo through future generations, shaping how Egyptians understand morality, truth, and the eternal journey of the soul. The sun descends behind the cliffs of western Thebes, casting long shadows across the necropolis where thousands of artisans, priests, embalmers, and workers spend their lives tending to the dead. In the New Kingdom's bustling funerary landscape, no aspect of daily labor is merely practical. It's every task carving stone, mixing oils, weaving linen. Painting scenes of the afterlife is a sacred act performed under the watchful presence of the guardian. This era marks not only the refinement of theology, but the flourishing of the material culture that sustains it, within workshops, embalming rooms, and temple courtyards. People carry out the religious duties that ensure safe passage for every soul. And at the heart of their work stands the guardian whose domain touches every corner of these activities. In the great funerary temples built along the Nile's western bank, priests maintain daily rituals to honor the gods and protect the resting places of pharaohs. These temples are vast complexes filled with storerooms, altars, workshops, and precincts reserved only for the initiated. Each morning, priests gather to recite hymns and burn incense, calling upon the guardian to watch over their actions. His presence is felt in the quiet corridors, where a flickering lamplight dances upon carved reliefs of his jackal-headed form. His vigilance defines the atmosphere of these spaces. To work within a funerary temple is to feel constantly accompanied by his serenity, his silence, and his unwavering determination. The embalmers who prepare the deceased for mummification are among the most respected specialists in this environment. Their work demands precision, emotional discipline, and deep spiritual focus. They labor in the Purn Affair, the house of beauty, where bodies are washed, purified, dried, anointed, and wrapped. The guardian is invoked at the beginning and end of every stage. Embalmers believe that he oversees their tools, guiding their hands when they cleanse the body or apply sacred resins. Each movement is performed slowly, methodically, and respectfully, as if the guardian himself stands beside them, measuring the purity of their intentions. The tools of embalming are treated with reverence. Bronze knives, obsidian blades, small hooks, alabaster vessels, wooden tablets, and jars filled with oils line the shelves of the workshop. Some tools feature inscriptions calling upon the guardian for guidance. May he steady my hand. May he protect the ka of the deceased. These inscriptions reflect a belief that practical skill and divine oversight must work together. The guardian becomes not only the protector of the dead, but the patron of the living who serve them. Embalmers follow a strict hierarchy. At the top is the Hari Seshta, the master of mysteries, who oversees the entire process. This figure is believed to embody the earthly principles of the guardian. Its posture, voice, and movements reflect calm vigilance. When he recites invocations, those present imagine the guardian speaking through him. Below him are specialists responsible for cleansing, drying, and wrapping the body. Each one holds a role that connects to the guardian's mythic duties of purification and protection. Their daily routines are filled with chants, gestures, and pauses to honor his presence. Among the most important tasks is anointing the body with sacred oils. These oils, myrrh, cedar, juniper, lotus, and others, carry symbolic and practical significance. They preserve the skin, bless the spirit, and link the deceased to divine essences. Embalmers move in slow circles around the body, applying oil to each limb while whispering prayers. The guardian's name is spoken with reverence, for the oils represent the tears shed for Osiris during his mythic death. By anointing the deceased, embalmers reenact these divine actions, guided by the guardian who once prepared Osiris himself. Wrapping the body is an art that requires both technical skill and spiritual awareness. Embalmers weave layers of linen around the corpse, shaping a cocoon of protection. Between the layers, they place amulets made of faience, stone, or gold. Many of these amulets bear the guardian's image. Some show him seated with a staff. Others depict his jackal head with elongated ears. The placement of these amulets follows a precise order. They protect the heart, lungs, limbs, and vital pathways of the spirit. Their presence ensures that the soul remains connected to the body. Every fold of linen, every knot tied, every amulet placed is performed under the guardian's invisible supervision. Once the body is fully wrapped, the opening of the mouth ritual takes place. This ceremony restores the senses of the deceased so they may receive offerings and speak in the afterlife. Priests and embalmers touch ritual tools to the lips, eyes, and ears of the mummy, calling upon the guardian to open the spiritual pathways. The ritual references the moment when the guardian restored Osiris's abilities after death. This reenactment connects the deceased to the cycle of divine rebirth. Even in silence, the guardian's presence shapes the outcome of the ritual. While embalmers tend to the deceased, artisans across the necropolis prepare the tomb itself. In dusty courtyards illuminated by sunlight, craftsmen carve stone blocks, shape sarcophagi, and paint detailed scenes on plaster walls. Their workstations buzz with activity, yet each task is deeply tied to spiritual intention. The guardian's image appears repeatedly in tomb art sometimes as a small emblem near a door, other times as a central figure looming over scenes of judgment and transition. Stone carvers study every detail of the guardian's form, ensuring that his ears stand erect, his muzzle is carefully shaped, and his posture conveys quiet authority. They know that the placement of his image is not decorative, but essential. A guardian figure carved into the threshold protects the tomb from intrusion. Depiction of him painted beside an offering table ensures that the deceased can safely receive sustenance. His likeness functions as a spiritual sealing anchor between the mortal world and the realm of the dead. In the workshops where papyrus is prepared, scribes copy spells from the Book of the Dead with elegant, flowing strokes. They prepare scrolls filled with illustrations of the guardian guiding souls through gates, over rivers, and into the presence of Osiris. Scribes must maintain strict accuracy, for a misplaced hieroglyph could alter the meaning of a spell. They often whisper the guardian's name as they write, seeking clarity and focus. Their ink-stained fingers labor under the belief that the guardian himself watches over each written line. The scribes who create funerary texts hold a special connection to the guardian through language. They view themselves as translators between the divine and the mortal. They believe their writing helps the soul journey safely through realms that cannot be perceived by living eyes. The guardian becomes their intellectual companion, the one who whispers the unseen truths they inscribe. Their writings often portray him not only as protector and purifier, but as the keeper of sacred knowledge. Beyond the workshops and temples, another group of workers plays an essential role in the maintenance of funerary practices, the cemetery guards. These men spend nights patrolling the necropolises, moving silently through rows of tombs with lamps in hand. Their duties mirror the guardian's vigilance. They protect burial goods from thieves, ensure that offerings remain undisturbed, and prevent animals from entering sacred spaces. Their work requires courage, for the necropolis is a place of shadows, silence, and spiritual intensity. Many guards carry amulets of the guardian for protection during their lonely rounds. They believe he walks beside them, just as he walks beside the souls they protect. In the villages built for workers such as the famous community at Deir el-Madina, families live in close quarters, sharing labor, meals, and stories. These stories often revolve around the guardian. Parents tell their children that the guardian watches over those who respect the dead. Describe him as a silent friend who helps travelers find their way through the desert. They speak of his presence during illness or sorrow, comforting the living when they feel vulnerable. These tales reveal how deeply the guardian's identity penetrates daily life. He is not a distant god, but a familiar companion. In marketplace stalls, artisans sell small figurines and amulets shaped like the guardian. Some customers purchase them for household shrines. Others carry them during long journeys. Soldiers take them into battle. Pregnant women keep them near their beds. The amulet's meaning is simple, yet profound. Protection. To wear the guardian's likeness is to invite his watchfulness. Priests of the guardian hold special roles in funerary temples. These priests oversee rituals related to purification, protection, and the care of burial spaces. They maintain statues of the guardian, bathing them in scented oils and dressing them with linen. They recite hymns that describe his vigilance, praising him as the one who stands at the gates of the afterlife. Their rituals mirror the guardian's cosmic duties. They open pathways, repel malevolent forces, and prepare souls for judgment. Through their daily work, they embody the guardian's presence within the living world. In the deeper chambers of tombs, where only priests and family members may enter, ceremonies of transition take place. These ceremonies involve offerings of bread, beer, fruit, incense, and figurines. Families present these items while invoking the guardian to bless them. They ask him to protect the memory of the deceased, to guard the body during its eternal rest, and to guide the spirit until it reaches the field of reeds. These rituals reflect a deep trust in his presence, matter how complex the afterlife may be. They believe he will guide their loved ones safely. The guardian's influence even extends to the architecture of tombs. Architects design chambers with symbolic shapes, rectangular for earthly existence, curved for celestial transition. Narrow corridors representing passages through the Duat. Key points in these designs: they place niches for guardian statues. These statues serve not merely as decoration, but as spiritual guardians who anchor divine protection within the tomb. The tomb becomes not only a place of rest, but a space sanctified by the guardian's invisible watch. In the royal necropolises, the guardian's presence becomes monumental. In the Valley of the Kings, tomb entrances often bear his name and titles. Some tombs include entire chambers dedicated to depictions of the guardian guiding the king through the Duat. These scenes reflect the belief that even kings who are divine on earth cannot navigate the afterlife without his assistance. He is the guide of all souls, from the humblest laborer to the most exalted pharaoh. The daily realities of funeral workers, priests, embalmers, artists, scribes, architects, Ks, and guards are infused with reverence for the guardian. Their labor is more than service. It is devotion. K. Every stroke of the brush, every carved line, every wrapped layer of linen, every spoken prayer reinforces his spiritual authority. In this world, the guardian is everywhere. His presence pulses through the workshops, echoes through the tombs, and whispers through the rituals. Through their actions, the workers of the necropolis bring the guardian's mythology to life. They make the unseen visible. They shape stone, ink, fabric, and ritual into a bridge between worlds. They ensure that every soul receives the protection promised by the guardian. Their devotion reveals a profound truth. The guardian's power is not only cosmic, it is lived. It is embodied by the people who serve him. And as Egypt moves toward the later New Kingdom with its political upheavals, shifts in dynasties, and evolving religious landscapes, the devotion of these workers ensures that the guardian maintains his eternal presence. He remains the protector in the shadows, the guide through transitions, the keeper of purity, and the silent force that watches over both the living and the dead. Night settles gently over the Nile Valley, and the stars emerge one by one, shimmering like ancient lanterns in the vast silence of the sky. In these moments, when the wind quiets, when the desert cools, when lamps flicker inside mud brick homes, the Egyptian world takes on a profoundly spiritual character. For it is in the darkness, not the light, that the living most deeply feel the presence of the unseen. And among all the divine beings who inhabit this unseen realm, none is felt more closely, more personally, and more consistently than the guardian of the afterlife. By the time the New Kingdom matures into its later centuries, guardian has become not only the protector of tombs, mummification, and judgment, but the central figure in the everyday spiritual lives of Egyptians. This shift marks a profound evolution. The guardian is no longer confined to the necropolis or to funerary temples. He becomes a presence invoked during illness, fear, childbirth, travel, nighttime uncertainty, and moments of emotional struggle. He becomes a divine companion who understands human vulnerability as deeply as he understands the mysteries of the afterlife. This expansion of his role is reflected in the proliferation of magical texts, amulets, charms, and household rituals dedicated to him. Magic in ancient Egypt is not superstition. It is a sophisticated system of symbolic actions and spoken words that link the human world to the divine. Every spell functions as a bridge connecting ordinary life to cosmic order. And in this world of magical practice, the guardian becomes one of the most trusted allies a person can call upon. The Egyptians believed that magic keys woven into the fabric of creation. It is not something learned artificially. It is inherent in the universe, used by the gods themselves. Therefore, when priests and ordinary people use magical spells to call upon the guardian, they believe they are participating in a sacred tradition that stretches back to the dawn of creation. They speak words that reflect divine speech. They perform gestures that echo divine actions. And the guardian, ancient and vigilant, listens. Among the most common magical texts are those designed to protect the dead from spiritual harm. Many of these spells appear in the Book of the Dead, inscribed on papyrus, coffins, or the walls of tombs. These spells describe dangers the deceased may encounter: serpents that bite with spiritual venom, demons that confuse travelers, gates that seal unexpectedly, and illusions that deceive the unprepared. In dozens of these spells, the guardian appears as the one who neutralizes these threats. The deceased addresses him directly. Guide me past the serpent who waits in the darkness. Protect me from the one who devours shadows. Open the way through the gate where no path exists. These words reflect deep trust. The soul does not beg for mercy. It calls upon a divine friend. But magical texts are not reserved for the dead alone. A vast array of spells are created for the living, written on astraca, amuletic, papyri, pottery, and personal items carried during daily life. These spells often begin with quiet invocations. O guardian of the sacred land, stand beside me. Protector of the lost, find my way. Opener of the ways, remove fear from my heart. K. The guardian's role in these spells reflects his intimate connection to human experience. He protects travelers from the dangers of the desert. He guards pregnant women from harm. He stands beside warriors in battle. He protects children from nightmares. He comforts the grieving who feel the presence of the dead too closely. His universality makes him one of the most beloved divine figures of the New Kingdom. One particularly poignant category of magical practices involves amulets. Amulets, shaped like the guardian, proliferate throughout Egyptian society. Some are carved from faience, their turquoise hue, symbolizing life and rebirth. Others are made of obsidian, reflecting the guardian's connection to the desert's night. Still others are cast in gold, symbolizing divine eternity. Each amulet is designed for a specific purpose. Some protect the wearer's heart from emotional turmoil. Others guard physical safety. Still others aim to bring clarity during dreams. Dreams themselves become a profound area of spiritual activity. Egyptians believe that dreams allow the soul, specifically the ba, to ascend from the sleeping body and wander the unseen world. During these journeys, the soul encounters divine beings, ancestors, and symbolic landscapes. The guardian becomes the protector of the dreaming soul. Capel writes spells on small pieces of papyrus, folding them into amulet cases and placing them beneath pillows. K. These spells ask the guardian to stand beside the sleeping person, guiding the BA safely through its nightly travels. May the opener of the ways guard the doors of sleep. May he light the paths where shadows gather. May he return me safely to my body with the rising dawn. For many Egyptians, these rituals bring comfort during nights filled with fear, uncertainty, or sadness. Another profound aspect of magical practice involves protective statues. K. These small figurines, often depicting the guardian in a seated position with watchful eyes, are placed in homes, workshops, and storage rooms. Their presence protects not only physical spaces, but emotional ones. Families believe that the guardian stands in visible guard, keeping harm away. Some statues are placed near doorways, facing outward to repel malevolent forces. Others face inward, symbolizing the guardian's watch over the household's inner life. In the domestic sphere, mothers often call upon the guardian when children fall ill or cry during the night. They whisper prayers, believing he stands beside the child's bed, calming fear. Fishermen leave small offerings to him before long journeys downriver. Farmers invoke him during storms or when wild animals threaten their livestock. His ability to sense danger in the unseen realms makes him a natural protector in the unpredictable world of daily life. The magical tools associated with the guardian also become elaborate during this era. Wands carved from hippopotamus ivory known as birth tusks feature his image among protective deities. These wands are used by midwives, priests, and mothers to protect newborns. Their curved shape symbolizes the arc of protection, and the guardian's presence on these objects reinforces his role as protector not only of the dead, but of new life entering the world. Similarly, magical knives engraved with protective spells are used in rituals designed to ward off chaos. Priests wield these blades symbolically, never to harm, but to cut through spiritual darkness. They trace arcs in the air, forming invisible boundaries that reflect the guardian's mastery of thresholds and doors. These rituals echo his mythic ability to open ways and clear obstructions. The presence of the guardian is also felt in the rituals involving namesren, the identity that carries a person's essence. Egyptians believe that knowing a name gives spiritual power over a being. Thus, inscriptions often call upon the guardian to protect the ren of the deceased, ensuring it cannot be erased or stolen. Magical texts describe him shielding names from those who would seek to distort or destroy them. This protection reflects his deeper role, guarding the truth of who a soul truly is. In tombs, magical spells often emphasize the guardian's ability to protect the body and name together. Some spells describe him patrolling the chamber, ensuring that no disturbance touches the deceased. Others portray him standing watch over the sarcophagus, his eyes like burning embers in the darkness. His presence in the tomb is not merely symbolic. Egyptians believe that each statue or image of him functions as an anchor for his spiritual essence. Through these anchors, he becomes a constant protector for eternity. As magical practices evolve, so to do personal expressions of devotion. As ordinary people began to compose informal prayers, send official hymns, written in everyday language rather than temple script. These prayers are found on pottery shards, carved into small stelae, or written on pieces of linen. Their simplicity reveals the emotional bond between worshippers and the guardian. You found me when I was lost. You carried me when fear surrounded me. You opened the way when I saw no door. These expressions echo the belief that the guardian does not judge the living or hold their mistakes against them. He remains a compassionate guide, willing to walk with them even when they feel unworthy. Priests who specialize in magical healing draw upon the guardian's attributes during their work. When treating illnesses believed to be caused by spiritual imbalance, they invoke the guardian to cleanse the afflicted person. They imagine him removing impurities from the heart, the ka, or the shadow self. For Egyptians, illness is not merely physical, but often spiritual. The guardian becomes the divine healer who restores harmony. In more elaborate magical rituals, the guardian appears as the protector of sacred knowledge. Certain spells require the practitioner to recite secret names known only to the gods. These names unlock pathways, influence cosmic forces, or summon protective energies. The guardian becomes the overseer of these secret names, ensuring that only the worthy may speak them. Priests imagine him standing behind them as they recite, guarding the ritual space from disruption. The use of astrocosmal pottery shards used as writing surfaces becomes widespread during the later New Kingdom. Many astrocas contain quick protective phrases invoking the guardian. Some include lists of his titles, each reflecting an aspect of his divine nature. He who walks in shadow, he who opens the hidden doors, he who guards the sleeping, Saul, he who protects the pure heart. These titles reveal the intimate familiarity Egyptians feel toward him. They do not speak of him with fear. They speak of him with trust. Even in their darkest moments, mourning, illness, fear of disaster, the guardian becomes a source of strength. His watchfulness comforts those who have lost loved ones. His silent presence reassures the lonely. His impartial nature calms those who fear judgment. For Egyptians facing the uncertainties of life, he becomes a spiritual anchor. As the New Kingdom enters its later years with political turbulence, economic strain, and external threats, the need for protection grows stronger. Magical practices become more widespread, and the guardian's role becomes even more essential. His presence remains consistent, even when other deities rise or fall in influence. He is the one who does not change, the one who does not abandon, the one who remains beside every soul. Through this era of personal magic, household devotion, and spiritual intimacy, the guardian's image expands into one of the most profound in Egyptian religion. He is no longer only the protector of tombs. He has become the protector of emotions, dreams, names, memories, and the fragile human heart. And as Egypt moves toward the foreign dynasties and cultural transformations of the late period, the guardian's role will continue to evolve, absorbing influences, adapting to new forms of worship, and ultimately becoming a symbol not only of ancient Egyptian belief, but of the timeless human longing for protection, truth, and guidance in the unseen realms. The late New Kingdom slowly gives way to a series of political upheavals, foreign invasions, shifting dynasties, and cultural transformations. Egypt changes in ways that earlier generations could never have imagined. Yet through every shift, whether subtle or dramatic, the presence of the guardian endures. Its role adapts, his symbolism expands, his identity evolves as Egypt enters an era shaped not only by its ancient traditions, but by the cultures of Greece, Nubia, the Near East, and eventually Rome. These centuries witnessed the blending of mythologies, philosophies, and spiritual practices, creating a rich theological tapestry in which the guardian becomes a bridge between worlds, both literal and cultural. As foreign influence increases, Egyptians find themselves confronting new ideas about the afterlife, the soul, morality, and the divine. Greek settlers bring philosophies centered on reason, metaphysics, and the dual nature of the human spirit. Phoenician traders carry stories of coastal deities and guardian spirits. Near Eastern visitors introduce mythologies of shadow realms, heavenly courts, and cosmic journeys. Rather than resisting these ideas, Egyptian priests, scribes, and philosophers absorb them, weaving them into their existing beliefs. Egypt has always been a civilization of synthesis, and this era is no different. It is within this shifting cultural landscape that the guardian begins to take on new forms both artistically and symbolically. His jackal-headed appearance remains familiar, but his role starts to blend with that of other protective deities. In some regions, Greek settlers identify him with Hermes, the guide of souls. In others, he becomes linked to the Greek-Egyptian hybrid deity Anubis, a figure who combines the guardian's vigilance with the eloquence and swiftness of Hermes. This blending does not diminish his identity. Instead, it elevates him into a cosmopolitan, divine figure capable of bridging cultural and religious boundaries. The blending of Hermes and the guardian arises naturally from shared functions. Both guide souls. Both protect the boundaries between worlds, travel swiftly across spiritual spaces. Greek philosophers are fascinated by the Egyptian concept of a guide who not only leads souls, but purifies them, prepares them for judgment, and ensures their safe entry into the afterlife. They interpret him through their own philosophical lens, viewing him as a psychopomp who embodies transitions. In turn, Egyptians adopt certain Greek motif swings, caduceus-like staffs, and serpentine symbolism while retaining the guardian's essential nature. During this period, Alexandria becomes the great meeting place of cultures. Its streets buzz with scholars, priests, philosophers, merchants, and migrants from across the Mediterranean world. In its libraries and temples, discussions unfold that merge Egyptian theology with Greek metaphysics. Here, the guardian finds new meaning. Scholars describe him as the divine threshold keeper, the one who stands between life and death, between truth and illusion, between visible and invisible realms. Greek writers, fascinated by Egyptian religion, record tales of a jackal-headed god whose knowledge extends beyond mortal comprehension. As Egypt becomes part of the Hellenistic world, the afterlife itself becomes interpreted in more philosophical terms. Egyptian and Greek thinkers alike explore questions about the nature of the soul's journey. They describe it, metaphorically, as a voyage across waters, a journey through darkness, or a climb toward divine truth. In these metaphors, the guardian appears repeatedly as the one who navigates transitional phases. He becomes associated with philosophical introspection. People view him not only as a divine being, but as a symbol of self-understanding, the guide who leads the soul through its inner labyrinth. This era also sees the evolution of funerary art. Tomb paintings become more stylized, blending Egyptian symbolism with Greek artistic techniques. Stele portrayed the guardians standing beside figures dressed in Greek garments. Sarcophagi feature Greek vegetal motifs intertwined with Egyptian hieroglyphs. In this blended visual language, the guardian's form appears both familiar and renewed. His jackal head remains sharp, his ears alert, but his posture sometimes mirrors Greek idealism. He becomes stately, serene, and intellectual, reflecting the philosophical interpretation of his role. Meanwhile, Egyptian priests face the challenge of preserving their traditional theology while adapting to changing political realities. Temples continue to honor the guardian through rituals, offerings, and hymns. However, these rituals take on added layers of meaning. Priests emphasize his cosmic role more than ever. They describe him as the eternal guide, not only of individual souls, but of all beings moving through cycles of transformation. This expanded view of the guardian aligns with the growing interest in personal spirituality and philosophical introspection. One of the most profound developments during this era is the spread of magical papyri collections of spells, incantations, hymns, and rituals that blend Egyptian, Greek, and Near Eastern traditions. In these papyri, the guardian appears as a central figure invoked for protection, healing, and guidance. Some spells address him with Egyptian names, others call him Anubis. Still others use cryptic epithets. He who guards the hidden places, he who hears the cry in darkness, he who knows the twisting roads of the soul. His presence becomes global in scope. Traveler from Phoenicia may carry an amulet inscribed with a blending of Egyptian and Greek symbols. A merchant might recite a spell invoking the guardian for safe passage across the sea. A philosopher in Alexandria may study him as part of the ancient wisdom of Egypt. The guardian's identity also becomes associated with the human conscience during this period. Greek interpretations of the heart as the center of emotion and morality merge with Egyptian beliefs about the weighing of the heart. Philosophers describe the guardian as the voice of inner truth, the one who witnesses actions, thoughts, and hidden desires. This transformation deepens his psychological symbolism. He becomes not only a guide of the dead, but a guide of the living, helping individuals navigate moral dilemmas, emotional distress, and existential uncertainty. As Egypt transitions into the Ptolemaic era, the guardian's presence flourishes within temple complexes that now incorporate both Egyptian and Hellenistic architecture. Priests perform rituals that reflect centuries of tradition. Yet these rituals now include foreign participants, new languages, and hybrid mythologies. In these ceremonies, the guardian becomes a unifying symbol. His role transcends cultural boundaries, reminding worshippers that death, transition, and the search for truth are universal experiences. One of the most remarkable developments of this era is the emergence of new mystery cult religious groups that explore divine truths through symbolic initiation rituals. These cults, influenced by both Egyptian and Greek traditions, often incorporate the guardian as an initiatory guide. In some rites, initiates symbolically descend into the underworld, meeting the guardian in darkness before rising into the light of rebirth. His presence in these ceremonies reflects his ancient role, but imbued with new layers of mystical significance. He becomes the divine teacher who leads the soul from ignorance to knowledge, from darkness to enlightenment. As Roman rule begins, the guardian's image spreads even farther. Roman soldiers stationed in Egypt adopt his likeness, carrying small statues of Anubis as protective talismans during campaigns. Roman priests incorporate him into their own funerary practices. In the Roman imagination, he becomes a symbol of transition, not only between life and death, but between cultures, beliefs, and empires. In Rome, statues of him appear with stylistic modifications, more muscular bodies, more defined drapery, and sometimes Roman armor. Yet his jackal head remains, reminding all who gaze upon him that his origins are ancient and divine. Despite these adaptations, Egyptian priests continue to honor him according to traditional rites. In the great temple of Abydos, center of Osiris worship, the guardian remains essential to rituals reenacting Osiris's death and resurrection. Priests describe him as the first to stand beside Osiris after his destruction, as the one who purified the god and prepared him for rebirth. These stories remain central to Egyptian identity, even as the world around them changes. In this evolving religious landscape, the guardian becomes a symbol of continuity. It represents the enduring aspects of Egyptian spirituality: protection, purification, truth, and guidance. He also represents adaptability, capable of absorbing new meanings without losing the essence of his ancient role. As centuries pass and Egyptian priests confront increasing pressure from foreign religions, the guardian's significance moves underground, literally and symbolically. In hidden shrines, desert sanctuaries, and private rituals performed in homes, the guardian remains invoked. His prayers continue to be spoken. His amulets remain treasured. Even when official temples decline, his presence persists in the quiet spaces where personal devotion thrives. His image appears in the catacombs under Alexandria, where early Christians bury their dead. Some of these tombs include jackal imagery, a sign that the guardian's symbolism remains powerful even in new religious environments. To these early communities, he becomes not a competitor to new faiths, but a lingering symbol of protection, transition, and the human longing for guidance. By the time the classical era draws to a close, the guardian has become a timeless figure, no longer tied to a single empire or religion. His identity has evolved from a desert spirit watching over shallow burials to a divine protector recognized across cultures. He has become a universal guide who transcends boundaries, languages, and traditions. Yet, through all these transformations, one truth remains unchanged. He stands at every doorway, at the threshold between cultures, at the threshold between life and death, at the threshold between fear and understanding, at the threshold between shadow and light. As Egypt moves toward its final ancient centuries, the guardian's presence remains steadier, silent companion, guiding humanity through transitions as vast as empires and as intimate as the human heart. The world grows older around Egypt. Empires rise and fall beyond its deserts, and the old temples, once alive with song, incense, and ritual, begin to grow quiet. The late period unfolds as a time of both endurance and fragility. Foreign rulers sit on the throne. New gods, new philosophies, and new empires press upon the land. Yet, through all these changes, the ancient rhythms of Egyptian spirituality continue to pulse beneath the surface. And among the few divine figures whose presence remains unbroken, stands the guardian, still watching over tombs, still protecting the dead, still guiding souls through transitions that seem increasingly mirrored in the fate of Egypt itself. Temples dedicated to the guardian do not disappear, but their roles become increasingly symbolic as the centuries pass. Many no longer command large priestly staffs or processions. Instead, they become places of quiet devotion, tended by a small group of committed priests who preserve ancient rituals even when their society shifts around them. These priests see themselves as spiritual holdouts, keepers of rites that must continue regardless of political instability. They recite hymns that were ancient even in the New Kingdom, plight incense using flint and dried herbs. They purify themselves with river water just as their ancestors did, and always they call upon the guardian, for it is he who remains constant amid change. During the late period, one of the most profound developments is the growing emphasis on the internal, emotional, and ethical dimensions of spiritual practice. People begin to look inward in ways they had not before. They question their place in the cosmos. They reflect on the fragility of life. They feel the presence of time in a way that earlier generations secure in the continuity of their civilization ever had to confront. The guardian becomes deeply connected to this introspective era. His role shifts subtly from a figure primarily associated with physical tombs and the geographic Duat to one who watches over the interior worlds of individuals. Egyptian literature from this time reflects the tone of both loss and resilience. Hymns, lament, and private prayers carved on stele or written on papyrus speak of uncertainty, longing, and the desire for protection. Many such texts invoke the guardian with renewed emotional intensity. You who stood beside Osiris when the world was broken, stand beside me now. You who know the secret roads in the darkness, guide me through my troubled heart. These words reveal a spiritual shift. The guardian becomes not only the guide of the dead, but the guide of the living through emotional trials, societal disruption, and the quiet anxieties of everyday existence. As dynasties shift between Egyptian, Persian, and Macedonian rulers, the guardian's image continues to appear on sarcophagi, coffins, and tomb walls, but it also begins to appear on personal devotional items, small votive statues, household stele, painted plaques, and simple inscriptions scratched onto bowls or shards of pottery. This spread of domestic devotional material reflects a growing individualization of faith. People do not rely solely on temples, bring the guardian into their homes, invoking him for personal protection. In many towns, families keep small shrines in their houses. These shrines often contain figurines of the guardians, sometimes carved with care, sometimes cruelly shaped from clay bud. Each one carries deep meaning. A household shrine may show the guardian seated calmly, one hand resting on his knee, or standing alert, ears tall, staff in hand. Parents teach their children that the guardian protects their dreams. Elders tell stories of how he defends the vulnerable. Even in homes where foreign gods have been introduced, the guardian remains. He is the divine companion whose presence never feels distant. Meanwhile, temples across Egypt undergo architectural changes as foreign craftsmen contribute new styles. Columns adopt Hellenistic proportions. Courtyards incorporate Greek-inspired statuary. But within inner sanctuaries, those small, silent rooms reserved for ritual, nothing changes. The guardian statues remain in their places, adorned with linen, touched with oils, and honored with prayers. Priests maintain their rituals without interruption, for they believe that as long as the guardian's rites continue, the gates of the afterlife remain stable. During the Persian and later Macedonian occupations, funerary practices shift but do not disappear. Tombs evolve into new architectural styles. Burial goods reflect foreign influences. Artistic conventions incorporate new motifs. Yet, the guardian remains a central figure in the iconography of death. Even foreign rulers adopt his image, for they know that legitimacy in Egypt requires participation in its ancient funerary customs. They wear amulets shaped like him. They commission artwork depicting him. They respect his presence in funerary temples, for even outsiders understand that he embodies an authority that transcends political rule. But even as the guardian's presence endures, the structure of Egyptian religion begins to bend. Some temples close due to lack of funds. Others lose priestly staff. Still others are absorbed into syncretic religious movements that combine elements of Greek and Egyptian worship. And yet, even in these blended environments, the guardian continues to hold his place. One of the most significant religious developments of this era is the rise of Osiris's mystery cults. These gatherings, semi-private groups of initiates, explore the deeper philosophical meanings of death and rebirth. Guardian features prominently in their rituals. He is the figure who initiates must pass during symbolic descent ceremonies. He becomes the guardian of mystical knowledge rather than only funerary rituals. His image appears on amulets worn by initiates, signifying their readiness to confront spiritual truths. During this period, the guardian's association with the Anubis grows even stronger. The hybrid deity jackal, headed, yet adorned with Greek garments, sometimes holding a caduceus, appears throughout temples, papyri, and magical texts. Her Anubis becomes particularly popular in Alexandria, where Greek and Egyptian cultures intermingle freely. Here, he is seen as the divine messenger between worlds, both cultural and spiritual. People invoke him during times of cultural confusion. He becomes a symbol of synthesis, unity, and continuity, bridging old Egypt with the foreign world that now surrounds it. Yet, there remain places where the guardian is worshipped in his most ancient form. Remote villages near desert edges maintain rituals unchanged since the time of the Old Kingdom. They continue to bury their dead with offerings of bread, beer, and salt. They recite ancient spells. They paint humble images of the guardian with ochre and charcoal. These communities become pockets of cultural preservation, holding on to traditions that temples in the cities can no longer maintain with the same intensity. In these places, the guardian's presence feels almost tangible as though he lingers among the dunes. The desert itself becomes increasingly symbolic during this era. To Egyptians, the desert has always represented danger, impurity, and unforgiving landscape that both protects and threatens. The guardian, once believed to roam these sands at night, becomes a symbol of endurance in the face of harsh realities. People traveling across the desert carry amulets of him, believing he watches over them as he once watched over bodies buried in shallow graves. His association with desolate landscapes comes to represent not only physical but spiritual resilience. As Egypt transitions into the Roman era, the guardian's role takes on yet another dimension. Roman soldiers stationed in Egypt adopt him as a protective deity, equating him with their own household spirits. Merchants traveling through desert trade routes place his symbol on their caravans. Roman Egyptian families incorporate him into household shrines. Even as Christianity begins to spread, the guardian symbolism persists in subtle ways. Early Christian communities avoid openly portraying Egyptian gods. Yet, they retain certain traditions, such as the idea of a protective presence guiding souls through death that mirror the guardian's ancient role. Catacombs beneath Alexandria contain paintings of black canine figures that scholars debate. Are they the guardian? Are they symbolic protectors? Are they remnants of pagan belief, quietly woven into new religious practices? Whatever the case, these images show that the guardian's presence survives even as Egypt's official religion transforms. Meanwhile, desert monks living in isolation adopt certain Egyptian symbols, perhaps without fully understanding their origins. Some early monastic texts describe spiritual watchers who stand at tombs, guarding against chaos. These descriptions resemble ancient stories of the guardian, far more than the angelic beings found in other Christian traditions. This subtle continuity reveals the deep psychological hold the guardian has on the Egyptian imagination. By the end of the late period, the guardian is no longer only a funerary deity. He has become an archetype, the eternal protector, the threshold watcher, the guide of transitions. He embodies qualities that transcend religion, vigilance, honesty, perseverance, quiet strength, and compassionate guidance. His symbolism becomes deeply personal for many Egyptians, shaping how they understand life, death, and moral integrity. In the last centuries of ancient Egypt, temples decline, languages evolve, and new religious ideas sweep across the land. Yet in hidden sanctuaries, in desert shrines, in household altars, and in the memory of a people whose spiritual world is anchored in millennia of tradition, the guardian remains. He stands watch over tombs long abandoned. He stands at the edges of villages where ancient rituals still flicker. He follows caravans through the desert's silence. He lingers in the hearts of those who whisper old prayers. He watches quiet, patient, eternal, and as Egypt prepares to enter its final ancient centuries, The guardian's legacy stands on the threshold of yet another transformation, one that will carry his image far beyond the dunes, into ages and lands where new myths will rise, and yet his shadow will remain. The centuries turn, the dynasties fade, and the sands of Egypt shift over ruined temples and forgotten tombs. But while stone crumbles and kingdoms fall, something far stronger endures, not as a physical presence, but as a thread of memory woven through the human imagination. The guardian, who once walked beside the souls of ancient Egyptians, does not vanish with the decline of their civilization. Instead, he becomes a figure who transcends time, culture, and geography. His image travels across deserts and across centuries, embedded in stories, rituals, symbols, and the quiet intuition that someone stands beside us in moments of transition. In this final chapter, the guardian becomes not only an Egyptian deity, but an enduring archetype and eternal companion whose presence echoes across the long corridors of human thought. As the classical world transforms, Egyptian temples fall into disuse. Priests who once recited hymns to the guardian turn instead to new religious structures or retire into obscurity. Christianity spreads throughout the land, replacing ancient rites with new doctrines. Yet, even as Christianity takes firm hold across Egypt, the guardian's image does not disappear completely. It slips quietly into the background of the new religious imagination. Early Christian monks, wandering into the deserts, seeking isolation, purification, and spiritual insight, enter landscapes where the guardian has been honored for thousands of years. They sleep in abandoned tombs, pray in caves once dedicated to ancient gods, and walk paths worn by countless funeral processions. These monks adopt certain rituals and symbolic ideas without fully understanding their origins. They write of silent watchers who protect hermits during the night. They describe shadow guardians who accompany the soul during trials. Their stories echo ancient Egyptian beliefs, filtered through new theology. In their writings, the concept of a spiritual guide who stands at the threshold of death appears repeatedly. For monks and laypeople alike, death remains a mysterious boundary requiring protection and guidance. Though they no longer speak the guardian's name, his essence survives in the idea of a benevolent presence who ensures safe transition. Some early Christian funerary traditions incorporate motifs reminiscent of the guardian's role, guiding the soul through darkness, confronting spiritual dangers, and standing beside divine judges. Even the iconography of angels in later centuries sometimes resembles Egyptian protective deities. Wings spread, bodies poised in vigilance, faces serene, yet watchful. Though not direct copies, these images reveal how the archetype of the silent guide persists across cultures. The guardian, through a transformation spanning centuries, becomes embedded in universal symbols of protection, truth, and spiritual passage. Meanwhile, in remote parts of Egypt, local traditions continue to honor him quietly. Villagers who have never fully embraced formal theological shifts continue to place small offerings in old shrines. They whisper ancestral prayers during funerals. They keep amulets bearing ancient symbols, not in defiance of new religions, but because they feel instinctively that these protective forms bring comfort. The guardian's presence lingers in these small habits, preserved by ordinary people whose connection to the land runs deeper than political or religious change. Over time, the guardian's image begins to spread beyond Egypt, not as a religious figure, but as a cultural and artistic motif. Greek and Roman authors write about him in treatises on magic, philosophy, and comparative religion. They describe him as a symbol of moral clarity, one who sees truth beneath deception. Renaissance scholars, fascinated by ancient civilizations, study him as part of their rediscovery of Egypt. Artists depict him in sketches and manuscripts, emphasizing his mysterious and noble form. During the Enlightenment, when European intellectuals become obsessed with ancient Egypt, the guardian once again enters the imagination of scholars. Travelers sketch jackal-headed statues they encounter in ruined temples. Collectors bring amulets and funerary figurines back to their home countries. Museums display sarcophagi bearing his image, allowing thousands to gaze upon a deity who once stood watch in dark tombs. The Romantic era, filled with fascination for ruins, the supernatural, and lost civilizations, embraces the guardian with renewed passion. Writers describe him as a symbol of mystery. Poets envision him as a sentinel standing in moonlit deserts. Painters depict him with dramatic lighting and sweeping shadows. Even though these artistic interpretations lack historical accuracy, they reflect the enduring emotional resonance of the guardian's role, the guide through darkness. As Egyptology develops into a formal academic discipline in the 19th and 20th centuries, scholars translate ancient texts, decipher hieroglyphs, and reconstruct funerary rituals. Through these efforts, the guardian's ancient significance becomes clear once more. Archaeologists discover tomb paintings untouched for millennia, revealing his presence beside the deceased. Papyrus scrolls preserved in dry desert air contain invocations asking for his guidance. Coffins and canopic jars bear his image with remarkable consistency. For modern researchers, the guardian becomes not simply a curious sight of an ancient religion, but a window into how the Egyptians understood life, death, morality, and the soul. His role in the weighing of the heart scene reveals a sophisticated understanding of conscience. His guidance through the Duat reflects humanity's universal fear of the unknown. His protection of tombs symbolizes the desire to preserve memory and identity. His presence in household rituals reflects a longing for safety in a fragile world. Across cultures, people recognize aspects of themselves in him. They see in the guardian a reflection of their own emotional and spiritual journeys, times when they must move from one stage of life to another, crossing boundaries that feel frightening or overwhelming. In these transitions, the guardian becomes more than a mythic figure. He becomes a metaphor for inner strength, moral clarity, and companionship during times of uncertainty. Room in modern psychological interpretations. The guardian resembles the archetype described by scholars like Jung, the guide through the shadows, the one who helps individuals navigate inner fears, memories, and unresolved experiences. The ancient Egyptians understood this intuitively long before modern psychology existed. Their belief in the guardian's ability to guide the soul through dangerous spiritual landscapes mirrors the human need for internal support during moments of change. In this sense, the guardian's mythology remains deeply relevant. In popular culture, he appears in films, novels, video games, and artwork, though often portrayed with dramatic or fantastical embellishments. These representations continue a pattern that began thousands of years ago. The fascination with a deity who stands in the liminal space between life and death, light and darkness, safety and danger. Even children's books sometimes depict a jackal-headed figure as a friendly companion or wise guide. These images, though simplified, capture the gentler aspects of his ancient identity. Meanwhile, modern spiritual movements draw inspiration from Egyptian religion, incorporating deities like the guardian into rituals that blend ancient symbolism with contemporary practices. People invoke him during meditation, shadow work, dream analysis, or times of personal transformation. They speak to him not as a distant god, but as a presence who understands the vulnerabilities of the human heart. Anthropologists studying the persistence of ancient motifs observe that certain deities survive because they embody universal human concerns. The guardian survives because he addresses fundamental emotional needs, the desire for protection, the fear of death, the hope for guidance, the longing for clarity. Across thousands of years, these needs do not diminish, They simply take new forms. In academic circles, scholars increasingly view the guardian not only as a funerary deity, but as an embodiment of boundaries, physical, moral, psychological, and spiritual. He stands at thresholds, doors of tombs, gates of the Duat, edges of deserts, and boundaries of the human psyche. This role as threshold guardian endows him with a timeless quality. Every human life contains thresholds, moments when one must step into the unknown. The guardian watches over each of these moments, whether invoked consciously or unconsciously. Even the modern fascination with Egyptian jackal symbolism reflects a lingering intuition about his nature. Jackals, once seen as scavengers haunting graveyards, were transformed by the Egyptians into symbols of protection, vigilance, and spiritual insight. This transformation reveals a profound cultural truth. Fear can become reverence, danger can become protection, and the unknown can become a guide. The guardian embodies this transformation as few deities do. Today, when people walk through museums filled with mummies, statues, and funerary art, they often pause before images of the guardian. Something about his calm posture, his alert ears, and his quiet strength resonates deeply. He is not portrayed as threatening or wrathful. He does not wield weapons. He simply stands, watching, ready to guide. This presence, carved into stone or painted on ancient walls, transcends language. Even those who know nothing of Egyptian religion recognize something profound in his form. In this way, the guardian's legacy continues. He no longer belongs solely to ancient Egypt. He belongs to humanity. His story, preserved across millennia, reminds us that we do not walk alone through life's transitions. We have always imagined a guide beside us, someone who knows the unknown, who sees through darkness, who protects without judgment, and who stands calmly at every threshold we fear to cross. As this long journey through his history reaches its close, one truth remains: he has never left. He stands at the edge of memory, just as he once stood at the edge of tombs. He follows silently behind every traveler entering unknown territory. He waits patiently at every doorway of transformation. He walks with the living and guides the dead. His guardian, protector, purifier, companion, and the eternal guide of the soul. No matter how many centuries pass, no matter how many civilizations rise and fall, no matter how many beliefs replace those of the ancient world, the guardian endures as vigilant, as compassionate, and as eternal as the human longing for light in the darkness.